Beautiful Thursday evening. Middle of November. No, I'm in the beginning of November. I don't know. Feel a chill in the air. Everything feels pretty good. So good evening, everybody. Let's see who's here. We got Stephen Kinsey says he's got something to say before we get started with the chatter. Stephen, if you're here, lay it on us, my friend. Lay it on us. Wyatt, what's up, little man? How you doing, brother? Texas Roadhouse, huh? They're all right. You know, whenever I have their stuff, last time I had their stuff, like, since I'm on keto, not having the bread or whatever, well, I had the bread, and it, like, made me sick. It was pretty, like, it was a little much. So, sounds good. Thank you, honey. What's up, Jose? What's up? Purple Wrench Violet is here. What's going on? Atropa's here. What's up? Hey, D, yourself. Eddie says, boy, howdy. Cito says, yo. What's up, everybody? Doing a little bit of diet mountain spew tonight. Give me a little caffeine so I can chitter chat. Oh, that's all right, Eddie. You got to get up at 4:30 in the morning? On my work days, I get up around, I don't know, I probably should have been a fireman or something, because I'll go to bed like at 2 in the morning, and I'll get up at like 7:30, and I have to be to work at 8. Somehow I get up and fly out the door. And if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't have lunch or anything. Like, I would just go, because that's how I used to always do things. That's how I always got along in life. I'm like, when it comes to going to work, I want to have as little, like, I don't know. It's almost like when you're taking a dump in a public toilet, and you give it a flush while you're crapping. You want like as little air time as possible. I'm like that when it comes to waking up in the morning and going to work. I want to have as little time between waking up and being to work as I humanly can have, because every minute that I'm not at work, I'm thinking about, fuck, I don't feel like going. So if I could, I would just roll out of bed and be at work. Like, that would be what I would do, probably. Let me pop the chat out so I can see better. Satan is here. Uh-oh, what's up, Satan? DH in the building. Woo! Oh, all right. Yeah, take somebody's surgery. That sucks. Go, what's up, brother? Or sister? I think brother. Probably brother. Doesn't matter. Whatever you are. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, I'm one of those. Well, here's the problem, Atropa. If I don't do that, I will languish in bed literally all day. Like, if I wake up and I don't instantly get up and just jump into activity, you can ask my wife. I'll wake up at 10 and it'll be like 1 o'clock before I get out of bed. Like, it's like a sickness. It's one of the reasons that I don't keep my phone in my room anymore, because if I get up, reach over, grab my phone, and give into the temptation to just start scrolling, it's over. I could be in bed for days. And that's one of the reasons that I ended up having so much problems with my sleep schedule. That's all right, Jose. I try to get the good stuff in early. You got your working papers, Wyatt. Uh-oh. Watch out, everybody. Watch out. Oh, thank you, Wyatt. You don't have to give me a dime. You're still learning. Wait till you have real money, and then you can buy me and everybody the occult compound that we always wanted. And that'd be really awesome. You can be like, hey, I owe you my... I'm kidding. Thank you, brother. You don't have to worry about that. I do really appreciate all the super chats. Nobody should feel, I ask for them, but no one should feel like they have to. It's an optional thing. You're tipping me because I'm entertaining you and giving you good, good things, good thought-provoking things. And I just saw that I just saw that the chat just like exploded, like on OBS must have caught up. Yes, Secret Knowledge. I am pretty good right now. I definitely am. Otropa says, I have to wake up early because I can't go out without makeup. Yeah, right? It's like, I kind of wish I didn't wear glasses and I looked better with makeup on. Whenever I put makeup on, I look like weird. Like, it doesn't look right to me. I don't like the way I look with black fingernail polish. The only thing I was tempted to do would be to like do like the black hole eyes, like with the crackly fucking lines. I think that would be cool. But like whenever I like use like a Photoshop to like make me look like that, I look stupid. Like it doesn't look cool on me. I don't know. I think I have like whatever it is about my complexion, I don't look good with makeup. I have absolutely no it just doesn't look right. I was actually thinking about getting my eye surgery at some point, but that's so expensive, but it's cheaper than like getting a house, so I don't know. Maybe I'll just get eye surgery. I'll look good and then I could be homeless without glasses. That'd be pretty cool, right? I don't know. Seems like buying a home's just a big fucking money pit anyway. Like I want one really bad, but yeah. Andrew Colts is asking questions. That's good. I will get to that in a minute. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Jose's got an interesting question, so hopefully I can keep track of those. Yeah, Atropa, it's almost like being in Hollywood and they gotta like spend hours putting your special effects makeup on. Like, I'm not saying it like that, but that's like especially people who are into like alternative and goth fashion and stuff, like I think you are. Eddie, my reverse psychology worked and you bought me a 1999. Oh, I appreciate that, man. I really do. I won't tell you what to do. I will instead make demands of the universe and then tell the universe to enact them through you. Yeah, trouble. I think people like when they do like alternative fashion or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the first thing about makeup. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Does it like take longer to do? Because I have a feeling like there's a lot of foundation and stuff and like all kinds of things. Like even if you're pale, like you could always be like, you know, a little bit more like uniform pale or something. Like that's what I've noticed. But I don't know. You know what I'll do? I'll wear like, if you ever watched the original Conan movie, was Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he goes at the final, like the final boss battle at the end, or the pre-fight when he's going into like the place where they're cooking people and it's like the big orgy, and he like the makeup he puts on, he's got like camouflage makeup all over himself. Looks pretty good. So, but thank you, Eddie. All right, so let's take a quick look. And I'm not scared of the eye surgery, Atropa. It's definitely something, it's more of a price thing. Plus, I also have an issue with my eyes where I wore contacts too much for too many years. Like, I didn't sleep with them in, but I wore them so much. And I guess I got a special condition where my eyes are like really oxygen starved for whatever reason. Probably because I have Sanpaku eyes where like my eyelids are always over the top of my eyes. So the top of my eyes, the top of my eyes like turns white. Like it's really weird. So Wyatt doesn't like my hairdo. That's okay. I like my hairdo. It's fine if you don't. Originally when I got it, it was like a little bit wider, but I didn't like the way that looked. So we just kept getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And it's like, I don't know. It's when I had my full head of hair, like in some ways I liked it, but it like, I don't know, made my head look even bigger. So I don't know. Dead rat on my head. Fuck you, kid. Fuck you. But in all seriousness, yeah. My wife says she has zero patience for makeup, eyeliner. You know what it is? It's also like I just don't have, like my wife says, I don't have the patience to deal with it like every day. Like I'd rather just tattoo my makeup on if I ever did it, but then I'd get bored of it. It looks stupid. But so yeah, my like the whites of my eyes are like growing into my eyes. Like if I ever like see you in person, if I ever show you, I can lift up my eyelid and it's like you can see like it's almost like a blind person where it's like white. It's like white on the very top of my eye. So like when I look down, people are like, "Ah." It's kind of creepy looking. Yeah. All right, let's see. There was a question. Let's see. Let's go to that. We'll warm up with a little bit. Andrew Colts asks, do you think all intelligent creatures have awareness? Consciousness is everywhere and everything, but the illusionary conduits that resemble sentient beings, are they aware? Do they perceive? Okay. Your question is from a dualistic perspective. What I'm saying by that is, by the very nature of your question, you're assuming that there's other beings besides yourself in the environment. There is only one being at any given time. And that being is all of this. And so each one of the things that manifests in its own right, okay, if you treat it as real, then you have to treat it as it's got awareness too, because it's you in another form. It's kind of like this, okay? Imagine two hands, right? Both of your hands have a separate experience. If you take your hand and do this, and you take your hand and do this, they both have a separate experience, right? Now, when I say separate, I'm saying from your perspective, there's a left-hand experience and a right-hand experience, but they're both the same experience in your consciousness, right? Right? Think about this. Just play along with me here. So there's one experience happening in two different hands. And each one of those hands has its own perspective, its own, when I say individual, I don't mean truly separate because it's all connected to the same consciousness, but each one has its own individual perspective that it's feeling. Okay. Does my right hand know what my left hand is feeling? And does my left hand know what my right hand is feeling? Technically, no, they don't. But the consciousness, which is observing both, does. Okay. So the way to think of it is this. From this dualistic mortal perspective, which is an illusion, from that perspective, if we're just going to answer the question from this mortal dualistic perspective, you would argue that they probably do. They probably have within them the same awareness that you do. But let's try a different tactic. Let's approach this from another perspective. Let's approach this from the more non-dual thinking perspective. And let's pull back a little bit. Let's recognize that this entire that we're experiencing is like a dream. I've said this a billion times. I'll say it a billion more. So for those of you who've heard me say this, just do your drinking game thing. When you're dreaming, you take on the role of a character in the dream, right? When you're dreaming, if you're a vivid dreamer like me, you can see your whole body sometimes and everything seems completely real. You know, you stub your toe in a dream and it hurts, and you look across the dream and there's another person and they're talking to you and real things are happening and you feel like you're in a living, breathing world in a dream. No different than your daily life, in fact. You can't tell the difference when you're dreaming, except for when you have a lucid dream, of course. Are those other people in your dream conscious? Are they aware? Now let's be careful with how we think about this answer. In your dream, do you exist? Now, when I say do you exist, I mean this character that you're embodied in your dream. When you look down at yourself in your dream, does that person exist? Or is that a figment of your imagination? When you're dreaming and you're being chased by Bigfoot through a forest, rampaging after you, is Bigfoot chasing you at all? And is that Bigfoot separate from you, or is that Bigfoot you? Well, obviously, when you're dreaming, everything in the dream is you. Bigfoot is you. The figment of you is you. All of that is a manifestation that is inspired by you. But what you, right? What is that you? Well, that you is the consciousness that's dreaming the dream. So, in a sense, everything has consciousness and awareness, but there is only, at any given moment, subjectivity in one part of the dream. Now, because time is an illusion, in theory, when I'm talking to you, if you and I were facing each other in real life talking, while I'm talking to you right now, the subjectiveness of the entire multiverse, that consciousness, is pinpointed watching that exchange through this perspective right now, the one hand. And simultaneously, at the same exact time, on the other side of that conversation, consciousness of the entire multiverse is pinpointed there as well, listening to that side of the conversation. But it only focuses on one side at a time, because time's an illusion. That's the part you got to remember. Imagine this is happening simultaneously, but it's selective. So let's play another mind game to try to understand what that means. Take your whole body, right? Sense your whole body. You can feel quite a big field of your body at once. It can be hard to feel the whole thing, but you can kind of feel everything your body's feeling if you really just quiet yourself for a minute and just put yourself in your body. You can feel your whole body. Like you feel all the sensations that your body is giving you. Now you might tune some of them out, and that's a key point. You might tune some of them out, but you can broaden yourself and pick up a lot of the feelings of your body at any given time. Okay, so I want you to take your two hands. Let's do the two hand thing again. Close your eyes, put both hands out in front of you. And now I want you to focus on the sensations of just your right hand. Can you do that? Just focus all your attention on your right hand. Everybody can do this. There's nobody special who can't. And you can feel, now really like rub your hand together. You can really focus all your attention on that one hand. You can also, I'm tuning out my left hand. I'm focusing on my right hand. I'm not saying I don't feel it at all, but I'm saying I don't have as specific, like I am focusing all my attention on my right hand right now. And I'm still doing stuff with my left and I can vaguely feel it, but I'm really focused on my right. Everybody can do that. Every single person in the world can shift their attention around their body and exclude, at least to a degree, the sensations of other parts. Now, to really blank them out's impossible for most people. You need medication for that. But in theory, it's possible. You can focus all your attention at one time on one thing. That is conscious attention, okay? But you have full body awareness all the time. So what I'm saying is when you focus your attention on one hand, you're focusing your conscious attention on one hand, but your total awareness is on your whole body. That doesn't go away. The same thing happens now. In the non-dual sense, awareness is what is universal, but consciousness can be selective. The universe can be conscious selectively. That is to say, it can exclude an awareness, or I should say a conscious awareness of different parts of itself. So right now, as I'm speaking to you, from my point of view, consciousness of the multiverse is excluding the conscious awareness of what you're hearing. But there is a subtle awareness that this is not what I am. There's a subtle awareness, just like there's a subtle awareness that I'm a whole body when I'm focusing on my hand. There's a subtle awareness to someone, especially who's had the non-dual awakening, that there is an awareness of the totality all at once. You don't have conscious knowledge of it. That's a really important thing, because people say, well, if you're non-dual, if you know that, how come you can't put your consciousness into like a teacup or something? D.H. Thorne can't be in a teacup. And while the divine, while the formless one, while oblivion, while the multiverse is focusing on D.H. Thorne, it can't focus consciously on the teacup. And if it did focus on the teacup, would the D.H. Thorne experience have any knowledge of that? Well, of course not, because the D.H. Thorne experience is based on what the D.H. Thorne enigma is doing in the multiverse. So you can't take the memories with you, is kind of what I'm getting at. Just like your right hand can't take its feelings and put it in the left hand, but consciousness can have both. Now, this brings us to an understanding of memory. Memory is not a recording. Memory is a directory. Science knows this. Neurologists know this. Your memory is a directory that then prompts an imaginary reimagining of the thing that you think you remember. When you look back in your memories and you picture something when you were a kid, what's actually happening is, according to science anyway, according to science, your brain is reimagining those moments based on mnemonic inspirations. Your brain has a directory of mnemonic devices that when you try to remember something when you're a kid, it causes a special kind of thought that you call a memory. But memories are just thoughts. They're not recordings. So when someone says, oh, if you're a non-dualist, you should be able to remember all these other things, past lives. Memories are not recordings. They're not recorded anywhere. They're accessed by where your attention is placed. They're a directory that points the mind's eye to something. Now, a non-dual understanding of memory jives pretty well with the neurological understanding. There is the Akashic record. There is this idea that all of time and space, whether you think it's a multiverse or just a single universe, is stored, imprinted. All the data is there, and consciousness can access it at any time. This is theoretically how all spiritual downloads occur. When I have a premonition of understanding of something that I shouldn't have any direct understanding of, when I suddenly have a eureka and I figure something out that I shouldn't be able to figure, I just know something. I know that my mom or my friend or somebody's going through something and there's no way I should know it. Like, it's like I have empathy for a distance, or I say something about the future and it happens. Theoretically, that is consciousness making an access to that other event in time and space being illusory, making access of that Akashic thing and having it in this moment too. Like they overlap. Now, because we think of things in such a materialistic way, this is really hard to talk about without messing it up, like, and taking it too literally. Everything I'm saying is like analogous. The part of the problem here is that the words we use to describe this sound like there's mechanical elements involved. When I say mechanical, I mean cause and effect. It makes it sound like there's like a storage device, like the Akashic record's a crystal in the sky or something. Akashic record is just a mythological metaphor for something that's unspeakable. You cannot describe it with words. I do? Okay, I'll get to those in a second. Just remind me again. So those things that we're remembering, they're accessing, they're a directory. So your memories are a directory. Your memories direct you at something that you've forgotten. They're directing you to another piece of reality. And in the worldview that I describe, when you access a memory, consciousness is literally sharing its attention with some other time. It's not actually just imagining shit, like making it up. When you're remembering when you're a kid, that is a directory pointing you to a moment when the past existed. But the problem is, this is why this can be fallible. There's a multiverse out there. It may not be pointing to the one that is valid in this timeline that you're in, because in theory, you've been traveling the multiverse consciously, I'm saying, not physically. Your physical body doesn't go anywhere. Consciousness has been like reading this story of your life, and it could go off on any tangential timeline you can imagine. And so it might have an access to a memory that's long gone, that exists in another reality. You might remember something that is wrong for this timeline. Like, I remember I had a blue truck when I was a kid. No, Thorne, it wasn't blue, it was yellow. What? That's impossible. I remember it being blue. What did I do? Just, what is it? Mandala effect again? What happened? It's not that your memory's wrong. It's that your memory is accessing something to a different timeline in the multiverse. That's the theory that I work on. It's not that your memories are fallible. It's that you're not in the same reality as that memory anymore. So that's one way to look at it. That's just a working theory. Is it exact? Probably not. I probably got some of it wrong. But so that's the point, is that this awareness is universal. Awareness is universal. There is awareness in everything. Consciousness is awareness aware of itself, awareness aware of being aware. That's consciousness. So consciousness is an awareness of something. Self-conscious or self-awareness is when awareness is aware of itself. So does everything have self-awareness? That's a difficult thing, yes, but not at the same time you do. When I say you, I mean wherever your perspective is right now, where that center of consciousness is, then it's not somewhere else in that instant. So when you're going through life, like when I talk to my wife, the weird thing that I know is that in this moment, consciousness is centered here. But because time is an illusion, consciousness is also centered there simultaneously as it is with me. But because of the way this works, I'm having my own subjective realization of it. Now, does that mean I can have both? I am having both right now. I am just not currently attentive to it. When I am aware of both, there is no relationship to this reality that I'm seeing now. Again, I've said this a million times before. I'll say it a million times more. Can you imagine eternity from start to finish in a timeless way? No, you can't. Your moment to moment simulacrum that you're living in is totally incapable of containing the experience of two people at once, three people at once. It's just not going to fit. It's not, you can't relate to that at the same time. The moment you start to, and there's people who have had experiences like this, they've started to have out of body, maybe they've actually had dual awareness. I've never had that. But there are people who have had dual awareness and weird things like that. They transcend and step out. And I shouldn't say I've never had it. The form of it I had, I can't prove, because when I sort of had that out of body, like when I started to wake up when I was watering the bush, to me now it feels like it was just a daydream, like a really vivid daydream. But when it was happening, I remember feeling like I know what the birds are feeling. I know, and I was like shimmering in all these different. But I don't have a relationship to that memory. I can't prove it. For all I know, it was just a wild ass psychedelic daydream that my own DMT triggered or something. I don't know. But I do know that it was really vivid. There are people who've had even more vivid ones that maybe could be provable, but they won't get a chance to prove them. So it's sort of a yes and no question. Yes, in the grand ultimate scheme, yes, awareness is in both. Self-awareness, consciousness, all of it. From the moment to moment, though, no. This sounds solipsistic if you take it. Now, solipsism is its own thing. You have to, if you look up the definition of solipsism versus non-duality, they're not the same. I've had people like really try to like hate troll me. Because one person was reading my book one time, was like, this is solipsism, this is bullshit, this is nonsense, blah, 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 and just started like harassing me about it. But non-duality is not solipsism. It's objectively not. You look it up, it's totally not. So solipsism is specifically the idea that you as an individual person are all that exists and everything else around you is imaginary. That's solipsism. Non-duality might be cosmic solipsism, perhaps. One could say that it's a cosmic form of solipsism. Oh, okay. But that is not specifically solipsism. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. I have a couple of questions. Let me get to the super chats. And then let's see.
The first one is Patchwork, $5. I'm aware of Bing Bong.
Bing bong, bing bong. Did you know it's like my favorite character from that movie? Are you referencing what was that movie, honey? Inside Out. Are you referencing Inside Out? Bing Bong was like my favorite character. I don't know what it is. I'm a big giant like child at heart that's also sort of a book.
Big giant Bing Bong.
I'm a big giant Bing Bong. I really am. Like I'm a big scary edgy motherfucker, and at the same time I would write children's books. Like when I get old and senile, it's going to be children's books and shit. Bing Bong, Bing Bong. I love kid shit. Ask my wife. I play with stuffed animals with her all the time. I'm a big fucking cuddly teddy bear that's got a a sawed-off shotgun in his arm. The collective unconscious. Bingo, exactly, Patchy. Jung understood it. Now, of course, he said it a little differently than what non-dualist people would say, but he was informed by many of the same things, and he wasn't completely wrong. And Patrick says, me when I was gatewalking. I'm not sure what that line was specifically in reference to. Probably when I was saying something. All right, let me scroll back up because I missed, there's some questions. Yeah, Secret Knowledge says there's no easy answer to that question. No, there isn't. I assume you're talking about the question I was answering. Hopefully I made it look easy though, but a lot of what I'm writing about actually right now deals with that question. And I've had people who I consider friends and fans, like one recently got, I'm not going to name them because I don't want them to like feel like I'm certainly not criticizing them. One person was giving me a critique that they didn't like my constant talking about consciousness. And it's like, the thing you have to understand is, to properly, in my opinion fact, in my opinion, working magic and sorcery requires an enlightened perspective. It requires understanding consciousness either from a monist, pantheistic, or non-dual perspective, or something in that spectrum. A dualistic perspective doesn't cut it. Thank you.
He's got another subject.
Patrick says, experiencing dual consciousness. Oh, yeah. You did get one of them. Okay, interesting. Yeah, maybe put a regular chat about that if people want to read it. If you want to mention that, I'm interested in that, because dual conscious or multiple conscious, however you want to put it, that is a documented, mystical experience people have. Bilocation, I think, is one of the words for it, or like out of body experience, especially if your out of body includes an awareness of your in body experience at the same time. One of the meditations that I do is sort of like an out of body. I feel like I'm imagining it, but every now and then the thing I imagine is completely accurate. And that's like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Am I imagining it or am I going there with awareness? You just got to practice. All right. Someone asked the question of Satan. I forgot where that went. Someone asked, what was your... Oh, there we go. Jose asked, what kind of being is Satan exactly? An angel or a deity? None and both. All right, let's see. One of the things that I really like that S. Connolly did in her book was, Complete Book of Demonolatry. She was very light on explaining what this all is, whereas I'm very heavy on trying to explain all what this stuff is. One thing I liked about her approach was she left room for practitioners to either see these as psychological, imaginary friend type of things that are useful for, self-help path working stuff, to see them as literal theistic beings or some other thing in between. Okay. My approach to all spiritual entities is to treat them exactly the same. That means all spiritual entities, including yourself, are basically imaginary friends if you really think about it. When you go through and practice the various transcendental ontologies and whatever, different traditions that exist, you achieve gnosis or samadhi, and the real meaning of the word gnosis, not just knowledge gnosis. Like one thing that kind of not triggers me, but sometimes gets me a little about the online world of magic these days is the word gnosis is thrown around like it just means knowledge. And even though that is technically the strict definition of the word gnosis was referring to a mystical realization of one's divine nature. It was the epiphany. Okay, it was the epiphany that you would have in the mystery schools at the Temple of, the Eleusinian Mysteries, when you drink the Kikion and have your trippy out of body experience. You'd have an epiphany, and that epiphany was gnosis. You'd have a realization of your true divine nature. So anyway, from this perspective that I'm describing, the way I see it, there is one true view, and then there's a bunch of like superstitious theistic beliefs that kind of are the peasant view, if you will, the pig view, according to the Hermetic principles, right? You don't want to cast your pearls before swine, right? So there is the lofty realization, and then there is the layman's understanding. And I know that sounds super smug and dick, but trust me, read the sources. That's how it was, and that's still how it is. what I call theistic religion and superstition is that peasant understanding. It is a materialistic, dualistic understanding of a much more mind-blowing realization. The mind-blowing realization is it's the same divine entity that is all these things. And all these things can appear in different forms, but they're all inspired by the same source enigma, the same source archetype. So Satan, depending upon your cultural perspective of approaching that archetype, can look different, can seem different, can be a different being completely to two different people. Providing the source archetype is the same, you can say it's the same entity. Now, let me give you an example of how I mean this. Let me try to give you a couple that are like realistic, like you can approach and understand. Think about yourself, okay? Think about how you are to your friends versus how you are to your mother. You're not going to usually be the same, right? Most people would say, like, around their mom, they're going to be a certain way, right? They're probably going to curse a little less. They're going to be a little bit, probably, especially if you got a good relationship with your family, right? And with your friends, you're going to be a crass, dirty, slobby person, probably. If you're anything like me, you're going to be extra around your friends. So to your mother, you're one person, and to that other group of people, you're another person. But the same source is behind both people. Now extrapolate this to something ultimately divine. The same source is behind me, that is behind you, that is behind Lucifer and Yahweh and all of these different deity egregores. Everything's an egregore. You're an egregore. I'm an egregore. My dog's an egregore. Everything's an imaginary friend come to life. Everything. Everything. Even your soda can in front of me. It's all an egregore. It's all tulpa. It is all illusion. It's all maya. So what is Satan? It depends on who you ask. Satan is an archetype. It's an enigma that filters through to your personal experience, and you see Satan. We can all identify what Satan is, but there is a little bit of a difference, isn't there? To one person, Satan's a good guy. Another person is Satan bad guy. How's that possible? Because they're not actually looking at the same archetype. What do I mean by that? Oh, come on, Thorne, you're getting confusing. Let me try to make this sense for you. When certain Satanistic people look at the archetype of the authoritarian ruler, okay? So a satanic person, someone who's like be a theistic Satanist or even an atheistic Satanist, when they're looking at Satan, their idea of Satan looks like a Christian's idea of God. Because the Christian's idea of God is this loving father that controls everything and blah, 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 blah. But for whatever reason, the Satanist looks at that figure and sees a controlling authoritarian monster. Because in a lot of ways, Satanism is sort of a distant cousin of ancient Gnosticism. Ancient Gnosticism saw the God of the Jews as a pretender, a liar, okay, or a fake deity, or a subordinate deity. There was different degrees of how they saw this, because there is no one Gnostic tradition, okay? There's a whole bunch of them. But the deity that was Yahweh was seen as Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, literally their idea of the devil, like the real devil. For them, Yahweh was Satan. They said as much. They actually called Jesus Lucifer in certain sects of Gnosticism, which is why there is such a thing as Gnostic Luciferianism, which is one of the thematic overlays that I enjoy. It's not something I believe in. It's an overlay that I use. It's a thematic overlay. Because I realize that each one of these entities is inspired by an archetype. So the satanic view is their idea of Satan is just an inversion. They see Satan as Yahweh, and they attribute to Yahweh all the things that a Christian would attribute to a Satan character. Look at go pay attention to how the two different camps talk about each other's God. It's the same thing. They're both talking about the same archetype. Trust me, I've been watching this for years. It's kind of funny. And they're both going, well, your God's this, well, your God's this, your God's blah, blah, blah. And it's just tribal bullshit. They don't understand it. They don't realize that their enemy is not the deity that's in the front of it. It's they're both complaining about the same archetype that they don't get along with. The same part of the divine that they don't like, but all is divine, so nothing's forbidden. So a higher transcendent position is to go, yeah, even that part I don't like is part of the higher truth. What am I going to do? Cut that off of me? Like cut my arm off? What, are you kidding? So what about the Satanist view of Satan? Well, their view of Satan, most versions of Satanism, especially like theistic Satanism, their idea of Satan is a lot like the same archetype that was behind Odin, with a little bit of Loki and all this stuff. It's not a bad guy, but it can be a harsh master. It's I mean, how many people call it Father Satan? You mean like Father Odin? In a lot of ways, I'm not saying they're the same. It's just if you compare notes, if you compare the features and the archetypal nature, usually not always, by the way, I want to be clear, there are some theistic Satanists that are very into malevolence and all that. They do exist, okay? It's just not the rule. The general rule is a theistic Satanist treats Satan basically the way the Norse would treat Odin. A harsh but loving father, almost like Yahweh to a Christian, but a little bit more edgy and cool. I'm not saying that as an insult to them. That's my observation, okay? And I don't mean to disrespect that, even though I don't like theism as a general rule. I don't mean any disrespect to their belief or practice. What I'm getting at is that's never going to be my belief or practice, because I see through that. That's their stepping stone, and that's what it is for them. If you go to a Christian, their idea of God, depending upon if they're like an old-timey religion type, the fire and brimstone Bible thumper type, it's kind of a mix between what, Satan archetype is, the bad guy version, and an Odin. Like you got like this harsh father who's punishing people and shit. Oof, this is kind of like an abusive thing. So it's a different archetype. So you really got to learn about the concept of archetypes if you want to understand why Satan appears to be different to different people, because different people will put a different mask on the same archetype. And you can tell when they're dealing with the same archetype, but calling it different names. Now, this is something that in history is called syncretism. When you look at the ancient Greeks and their period of time where they were like, nuzzling up with the Egyptians, they syncretized a lot of their deities. And they said, well, this deity was this deity in another form in this culture. So like when they would go to Egypt, was it Amun-Ra was Zeus? And they had they had their own version of them. They said, well, Zeus appeared to the Egyptians and the Egyptians appeared this way as Zeus. Like it's the same deity, but with two different masks on, basically. That's one way of looking at it. And you see this throughout the ancient world. This happened in many cultures, not just one. If you look at Babylonian mythology, you have 5,000, 6,000, I don't know how many thousands of years of culture, and the gods evolve from one people to the next, from the Sumerians, to the Akkadians, to the Babylonians, and so on. And they just, a little bit of shift, the Canaanites, and you get like this progression of deities that are the same people, but they're a little different, and they're a little bit different, and a little bit different, and a little bit different. And you can see this, they're all pointing to the same mystical archetypes, the same transcendent archetypes. The deity Zeus is everywhere. Every culture on earth, to my understanding, has a version of Zeus. Now, there might be some little differences here and there, of course, but there's always a seed archetype that is the same, especially if we're talking about Western civilization in particular, because the deity Zeus, from a cultural anthropological perspective, not from a spiritual one, has a historical origin in antiquity that started as this ancient thing from Proto-Indo-European and Sumerian myth that branched out and became a deity in every culture from the Celtics to India and beyond. It's Deus Pater. Zeus, Jupiter, Zeus Pater, Jupiter. It's the same guy in all these cultures. And you can go to any culture and see the same sky god. Now, is he the same importance in every culture? You have Thor, same as Indra, Thor, Zeus, Deus Pater, Enlil. It's the same guy over and over and over and over and over again, just culturally fitting their culture. Now, I find it funny because the Egyptian sun god, Amun-Ra, is kind of nothing like Zeus, but because it was like the king of their gods and the king of their gods, I guess they agreed that it was the same guy, even though they didn't have, like, you know, I don't think Amun-Ra, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not big on Egyptian mythology. You know, he wasn't hurling lightning bolts. Usually lightning is associated, storms, specifically the lightning, the fire of the gods, is associated with this Deus Pater character. That's why you have Indra in India, Thor, Zeus, Jupiter. They're all hurling lightning bolts. Okay. So if you look this up, you'll see it's basically the same guy. Is there differences? Yes, of course there are differences. But there's more similarities that link them together than there are separations. So they're all pointing at the same archetype. And now this is why planetary celestial deities are so important to all forms of magic. This is why literally every form of theistic or theurgic magic has 7 special deities, Abkalu, whatever you want to call them, 7 special rulers, 7 special archetypes, 7 special deities, 7 special sages, 7 special guides. There's all different ways. If it's a ruler, you're looking at it from one way. If it's a guide, it's from another. The ancients saw the mystical planets flying around in the sky, and they used them as markers for those things because they saw correspondences. For whatever reason, and the association is ingrained deeply into human culture all around the world. And it's very similar in most parts of the world, not always the same. This is why it's difficult to say that it's the planets themselves doing this, because if you go to, like, you know, ancient America, where when they're looking at the planets, they might have had completely different associations for those planets, just so you know. But it's important to realize that even the constellations, when people look up and they say those constellations don't look like anything like what they're described as, that's because it wasn't really because of what they looked like. It's because they're associative with something going so far back in antiquity. It's part of collective human consciousness for them to have that association in that region. We could probably go back to Göbekli Tepe, and if we could really understand what they were doing, I'll bet you that there was some significance with constellation. I'll bet you they were probably associating with animals and things. And these things travel. If you look at our history, if you look at the 4 fixed positions of the zodiac, you've basically got oh, come on, brain. I had it and I dropped it. What's the that Babylonian thing with a human head, lion body, and wings of a falcon and the tail of a... That's the 4 fixed positions of the zodiac. No, not a chimera. Although that's one of the ways it's described. There's a specific word for it, but it's the same as like the angels and stuff. Okay, it's meant to represent the 4 fixed positions of the zodiac. Why? How is this possible? And what does this have to do with it? It's all references to really big correspondences that the ancients recognized. And those correspondences are still there working on us all the time. They're part of our collective conscious, they're part of our culture. I don't know why I can't think of the name of it. Let me see. Hold on. I'll find it. It shouldn't be hard. I'm Googling. Let's see. Okay. Oh, the Lamasu. That's what it was. Lamasu or Iomasu. Is it Lamasu or Iomasu? I think it's Lamasu. It's always capitalized, and I can't tell if it's supposed to be an L or an I. But yeah, you'll know it if you see it. It's I'll put the link. I'll put the name of it. Here, I just put it in the chat. So the Sphinx too, by the way. Yes, the Sphinx is the Egyptian version of it. Actually, very correct. And there is the idea that originally it might have been Anubis or had the head of Anubis. I don't know for sure about that one. That's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but it's a good one. I do like it. So, this is the fourth fixed position of the zodiac right there. Well, that doesn't look like a scorpion because it wasn't a scorpion for Scorpio. Once upon a time, it was a falcon. Yeah. Once upon a time, it was a falcon for the constellation Scorpio. Does that look anything like a fucking falcon to you?
You got another super chat.
Oh, I got a super chat. Uh-oh. Yep, the 7 new decrees, the fates, and Sumerian. I mean, you got the 7 fates, you got all, so that it's everywhere. Yes, don't forget the 7 Pleiades, all that, man. They're 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. So there you see these same things appearing over and over and over and over everywhere in the world in some form. The 4 cardinal directions, the four this and that, the 3 this, the 2 that. There's all of these things that, this is why I get a little bit sick. This is why I describe it as the Da Vinci Code for Goths, because once you start to see through it, it's kind of dumb, because I'm sure I'm missing some finer points because I kind of I'm irreverent about it. But at some point I look at it and go, man, why are you hiding it all behind the same bullshit when you could just say it up front, you know? And it's because they, for whatever reason, and I'm sure they had good reasons in many cases, that they didn't want the average people to know. It could have been because they were trying to keep it secret to keep themselves safe. It could be because they saw it as power to know this and didn't want everybody to know it. There's a million different reasons why you might keep this stuff safe. And as we go forward in time, right, it's getting easier to talk about these things, but it's also becoming, I'm realizing that there's a lot of stuff I would rather keep secret too, because a lot of people, as I'm revealing secrets to people, I get pushback, I notice, because it threatens people's ideological beliefs, excuse me. When I start explaining to people that magic doesn't cause change, very low IQ type people misunderstand what I'm trying to say, and they will attack me insultingly and say, well, you're not a real magician if you can't control reality. You're a fraud. I'm going to expose you. And they get like really crazy about it. And it's like, you're misunderstanding me, dude. I'm talking in a, yeah, it sounds self-contradictory until you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, you don't control reality. You are reality. It's like I said the other day, do you make your finger move? Do you force your finger to move? That doesn't make sense, does it? Do you have power over your finger? Yeah, Ninurta, definitely a lot of them were keeping the secrets to keep power over people. Absolutely. So there's a reason to keep things behind paywalls and keep things a little secret and keep things on the inner order side of things. There's many reasons to do that. I don't believe personally in doing that with the important stuff. That's right. I understood what you were saying, Patchy, about the 7 planets. Absolutely, for sure. I totally get it, because especially since your thing is, that's why the Necronomicon's such a good fucking system, because it's the same truth with a little bit more of a stylistic update based on Sumerian myth. It's the same thing as I'm talking about with the 7 planets, the 7 metaphors, the 7 archetypes, whatever you want to call it. It's all in there. And it's planetary theurgy. You're supposed to go from Earth and take stepping stones from each planet, transcending the different layers of delusion, getting to the planet Saturn, the angel of death, the god of time and death and harvest, of mortality and ending the cycle of samsara, reincarnation, whatever you want to call it, by realizing your true divinity, and you never have to worry about nothing again. It's the same liberation ontology over and over and over again. It's the same thing all over again. This is what's exhausting about it. This is why I kind of get frustrated, because, and I'm going to be full disclosure here, one of the reasons I have been less active is I'm frustrated with the expectations of the general, community on these subjects. A lot of people, for whatever reason, and I accept this because I know, like, people don't follow me like every day like a lot of you guys do. A lot of you guys follow my work all the time. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you're my, like, not my students, but you guys are like you're there with me all the time. And like, some of you guys know what I'm going to say almost as soon as I do. Some of you guys are like, oh, here we go. It's going to be a non-duality comment in a second. But a lot of other people don't. And they've maybe watched a couple of videos on me talking about, Demon Review or something like that. They think I'm their guy, right? You've probably heard that he's our guy kind of thing. They think I'm their guy. Like I'm a dyed-in-the-wool traditional demonolator or theistic Satanist or whatever the fuck else they think I am. Things I've never claimed to be. I've called myself a demon sorcerer, sort of a play on, it's sort of a joke, by the way. That's the reason I say that. I'm talking about it almost like from like the Asian perspective of, it's a daemon. It's not a demon, it's a daemon. I'm a daemon sorcerer. I use daemons in sorceress work. But that does not mean that I'm a worshiper or a theist or any of that stuff. And a lot of people will hear my work and they'll be like, oh, he must be like me. He must believe in this super system. And then when I start, so I attack two different extremes. I genuinely attack the hardcore, closed-minded, dogmatic, rational skeptic. And I attack the closed-minded, dogmatic, superstitious believer. I attack both of those positions with aplomb because they're both ignorant. They're both dogmatically dumb. They both look at the world through a very limited perspective. That's not to say that I don't have my own dogmas. Everyone's going to have a dogma, but your dogma should be the truth, whatever it is. It shouldn't be a belief. Whatever dogma you're working in should be subject to change based on new evidence always. That's number one. It should always be based on real experience that you've had. It shouldn't be things that you've heard and believe. If you're working on belief, then you're doing it wrong. Now, it's fine to not know and to have faith in your teacher or something that's guiding you. I'm talking about faith in the sense that you believe without evidence. So if you believe God exists without evidence of it, like real hard evidence, okay, there's a problem. When I talk about non-duality, when I talk about magic and sorcery and all these topics, I'm not talking from a position of belief or to fit in with what people think is right. I'm talking about what I have experienced that I can prove to myself, first and most important of all, to others, because not everything is provable to other people. It's just, magic is a very subjective experience. So I can't prove magic to other people. I can show you how I did it and hope you can prove it to yourself. And I have done that. Other people have experienced the things with me, or because of the way I teach them, they've had similar experiences and they can start to build their own experiences in their own worldview. That's how I do it. As a dogma, that's a healthy dogma. That's not a closed-minded dogma that ruins your ability to learn. It's an open-minded dogma. Non-dualism is great as a dogma because it's one you can prove. You can prove non-duality to yourself. You don't, if you believe in non-duality, but you've never transcended, you can have like a little microdose of non-duality. You can have a moment of gnosis and samadhi and then spend the rest of your life trying to get there again and figure it out and understand it. You can have it multiple times. You can do it every day and not live it. And then there's some people who live in a non-dual state all the time. I would say that I don't want to like highball it too much, but I don't want to lowball it either. Like I spend a lot of time every day in a we'll say a borderline non-dual mentality. I spend a lot of time in a very pacified minded kind of way. There isn't a lot of active intellectualism going on. I'm mostly just present as consciousness. When I'm writing, I'm just literally channeling right to my fingers what I would normally be thinking. Sometimes I get lost, just like then I get lost in thought and imagination. But most of the time, I am not in a highly egoistic state. But I can be put there, I can put myself there very easily. Current world events is a great example. Current world events yanks me out of my non-dual state very easily because I'll start scrolling and fucking YouTube and fucking Twitter and all these different apps with all the politics and argument and all this shit and all the conspiracies and conspiracy theories and bullshit and fake and real and going through all this stuff. And then I get into like an anxiety-filled state because of dopamine and all this, and I can fall right out of my non-dual state. And that's when I get depressed or anxiety or whatever the hell else. And I can start to feel like all the sufferings you can imagine. But when I take a moment, maybe I'll listen to the right meditative music, or maybe right before bed, or literally sometimes just putting my fucking phone down and walking around for a minute, getting out of that space allows me to recenter in that I am just a center of consciousness in the here and now. That brings me back to that edging into non-dual state. Now, I can go into deep meditation. Sometimes I do that when I'm just sitting here at this desk, and I'll just, and I'll go into a very deep non-dual state. And I can go deeper and deeper and deeper. The deepest I've ever gone is indescribable. I've only done that a handful of times. And when I say I've gone there, that's obviously not the right way to say it. It's the only way, because of English, I can say it. When that non-dual experience, the deepest I've ever gotten, is an indescribable dissociation with all forms of identity. It's just consciousness conscious of itself. And it's infinite, and there's no detail. There's no specific ideation. There's no hot and cold, up and down, left and right. It is literally just the abyss knowing itself. And that kind of thing is not memoryful. Like, it's not something you can bring back to your normal state and go, that's what that feels like, because it's not that. It's kind of like when you go to sleep at night and you know you were there, but you're not consciously aware of it. Like, you know you were sleeping, you know time passed, you're conscious of the fact that you were there. Because obviously you were there, you're here now. But you can actually walk back. If you ever wake up in the morning and walk yourself back to before your first dream, you don't remember it, but you know you were there. Like, it's not just an intuitive realization. I had to be there, like, logically, because you woke up. There is a feeling of presence. You did exist, even though you weren't conscious. So it's a little bit like that, except it's a little bit more first person-y, if that makes sense. Instead of being like, I'm awake now, thinking it's like you have this vague, I was there, like I was that. And yes, Andrew Colts, you got that right. Suffering is foreplay to pleasure. Well said. I am one of the people, like, I love when Alan Watts said it, and I've been perfecting a way to say it, which is that this experience of life is a great sadomasochistic orgy that the divine is playing with itself. That's what it is. It's like a great big masquerade ball starring one person. And it's the same person wearing all the masks, and they're all having a great big sadomasochistic orgy, and they're hitting each other and smacking each other and fucking each other and eating cookies and throwing up in each other's mouths and all the worst, most heinous, weirdest shit you could ever imagine. And it's both sides at the same time. There's your polarity alpha. That's right. When is he not going to talk about non-dualism? Wyatt, you should be sober. Don't make me call your parents. All right, let me scroll up and see what kind of comments I missed besides the supers. So I definitely skirted questions. Let me invite you guys while I'm looking. Let me invite you guys to give me serious questions, please. Give me good questions. And if you want, give me questions that aren't about non-duality. But I do want to jump at one more thing about that Satan question, because I went off on a huge tangent there. So what is Satan? To me, Satan is, if we're talking about my mask for Satan, Satan is an archetype of liberation, but it's like a, not just adversarial, it is like a wrathful kind of, it's like the liberation that like has a revolution and breaks its chains violently from things. And sometimes that's necessary in life. And in spirituality even, there's sometimes to break through to a realization of divinity, sometimes there has to be a little bit of wrath in there. There has to be a loathing for something sometimes. I know that doesn't sit well with the right-hand path crowd, but it is true. And I actually like the 7 Deadly Sins edition of Satan as wrath. I love that. I think that's a great addition, because it doesn't mean that he's a bad guy. It means that there's wrath there. There's a wrathful form of liberation there. You know, like you've been enslaved your whole life, and now you're taking revenge on the slave masters by setting yourself free. That's Satan to me. Whereas Lucifer, if we're going with the 7 Deadly Sins version, we're talking about pride. Pride is definitely the risk, but it's realization you are the divine. You know, Lucifer is like the Buddha or Krishna or Yeshua or Jesus, whatever your name for it is, but from an edgier perspective, right? And you can fill in the rest of your pantheon from there. So are they angels? Angels is just a word, dude. The angels is angels, demons, gods, deities, blah, 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 blah. Dude, why are we trying to classify the spirit world? That's the dumbest thing to me. Like what are we, Darwin? And we're trying to figure out the origin of the species, and we're going with a whole bunch of phylums and classifications. Well, that's a Nephilim, that's a cherubim, that's a seraphim, and we did a DNA test on Lucifer. It turns out he's actually an archangel, not a cherubim or whatever we said he was before. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, stop it. Just stop. Recognize these are archetypes that filter through into human consciousness and take on the forms that we associate with. Lucifer in one culture is Venus. To another, it's the sun. To another, it's Enki. To another, it's Lucifer appears to different cultures, different ways. And when I say Lucifer, I don't mean a person, I mean the light bringer archetype. To some, it's an angel of light. To some, it's Enki from ancient times. To another person, it's Shiva. To another person, it's Loki or whatever the fuck. I don't care. This is why I don't play these theistic superstitious games, because I look at people and go, you're talking to Lucifer, but you're calling it Jesus. Call it Jesus. I don't give a shit. If your Jesus is teaching you to be free of tyranny and self-loathing and all these kinds of things, if you're like, there is good guy Jesus, they do exist. I know we like to talk shit about Christians around here. No, there's good versions of Jesus out there. Trust me. You can find Christians out there that see Jesus basically as Lucifer, and maybe they're just Gnostics and they don't know it. Their version of Jesus is a liberator. And by liberator, there's a problem though. A liberator that breaks your chains for you, like sets you free, is not a real liberator, because then you're dependent upon them to liberate you. A real liberator is a guide. It's a light. It says freedom over there. Go if you want. If you don't, fuck off. Don't care. Good guy Jesus doesn't set you free like he's some kind of, like you can't do it yourself. Good guy Jesus shows you how to do it yourself. I remember there was this movie back in the 70s called The Poseidon Adventure. It had Gene Hackman. And Gene Hackman was a pastor, was a preacher, giving this sermon about how God, helps those who help themselves. And that to me is sort of the point I'm making, is that the real Lucifer doesn't set you free. He's not going to grant your wishes. He's kind of the most useless deity in the world if you're coming at it from a do for me kind of attitude. He's basically Crom from Conan. He's basically grow a pair and you're a god, act like it. That is a very important realization. If you go to Lucifer going, grant me this and grant me that, you're not talking to the same Lucifer I am. You're talking to the archetype that's more like other deities, what they represent, a ruler deity. Yes, they may look exactly the same. That's just your version of it. People go, that's not true. I know my Jesus is right and my Lucifer is right and all this kind of bub shit. Okay, you live in your little world. That's fine. I'm not trying to infect you with mine. I'm just telling you what I see. You tell me what you see, and we'll, like, here's the thing. You guys have probably heard of the parable of the four blind men and the elephant, right? Each person holds a different part of the elephant, and they each are right. When they say, when the guy in the front is holding the trunk and he says, it's a snake, in a certain way of saying he's not wrong. It's not literally a snake, but you get why he thinks it's a snake. And the other guy thinks it's a tree that he's holding because he's holding a leg and it's a big fleshy tree. And another guy's holding the flank and it's like it's a big breathing fleshy wall. And the other guy's holding the tail and says, no, you fools, run away. It's a lion. It's going to eat you. They're all right and they're all wrong equally at the same time. So everybody who's running around in this theistic, superstitious, or skeptical way saying, oh no, the demons and gods, they're just a figment of your imagination. Oh no, they're real, literal theistic beings. They really exist like that. Both of them are right and wrong at the same time. And if you try to put them together, you get a chimera that's even more wrong. Imagine what the four blind men who held an elephant, who touched an elephant, each one of them seeing a different thing. Imagine what would happen if you put together their description. You get this weird wall, a big fleshy wall with tree trunks for legs, a fucking lion's tail on one end, and a snake on the other. This weird chimera that looks like all four things at once. Is that what an elephant is? Obviously not. So if you have four different people and they're all talking about Satan and they all do the same thing, are they talking about the same entity? If you combine all of those, is that what Satan is then? No, you got to look at the inspiration. You got to look at the archetype that's filtering through each person's perception and figure out that archetype, because that archetype is Satan or whatever. Satan's just one name for that archetype. Jung gave us the 12, archetypes of whatever. And they're good archetypes. Are they the only ones? No, he was the first to say there's many more. But these are the 12 main ones that he liked to work with because they were universal and they came in like a wheel-like spectrum that you could like, highlight for everybody. He's got more in this case and less in that case, right? And that was a very effective tool. But there's way more than 12. There's more than 72. There's more than 108. Why am I using those numbers? Pythagoras is a bitch. All of these things, again, the hidden traditions, the hidden mysteries, the hidden this and that, they're all pointing at things that for which there are no language. And they're doing it with the cultural and various symbolism that was meaningful to them. Okay, let me scroll down now. I was going to ask you guys, I don't know if you guys have started doing this, to give me questions. Let me go through here. That's right, Doc. Odin is absolutely like that. So we're all talking about the same guy, right? It sounds like we're all talking about the same archetype. This is why I often say Odin's a little bit more like Lucifer. Satan's a little bit more like Fenrir, actually. If I was going to say who's Satan like, it's not Loki, it's Fenrir. Lucifer is more like Odin a little bit, like Odin and Loki mixed together, but mostly Odin, more Odin than Loki in my opinion. Yeah, I mean you can find this everywhere. You can find this everywhere. That's right, Doc. It's also human nature to organize things. It is, but that organization is how we're fucking it up. Let's see. Faustian, did you copy me? Faustian said, we only suffer because we are fixated on the idea that we never should. I put this in 2018, and I probably got it from somewhere else too. I'm not sure where, but it dawned on me one day to say, we only suffer because we think we're not supposed to. That's it. You suffer because you think you're not supposed to. Once you realize that suffering is an important part of the experience of mortality, it stops being suffering in the usual sense. Yeah, you have moments of, this sucks, but you don't suffer them. It's a different experience. Well said, Faustian. I don't know where you got that from. Maybe just what I said circled around, or great minds are thinking alike. I've said it. I think it's great. You said it. You should coin your version of it. I like it. Okay, so if you guys want to ask any specific questions, make them in all caps, okay? Wyatt asks, what's the symbolism 108? Well, 108 degrees. What's 108 degrees? There's a hint over there. There's a guy, Theoria Apophasis, who I watch regularly, and I get some stuff from him. I'm informed by him on certain things. Pythagoras is not my strong point, but I go to him as one of the people who talks about Pythagoras, and it gives me some really good insight. And he talks about the Pythagorean pentagram, which is really Hygeia, the goddess Hygeia. It was the symbol of Hygeia. It was the Pythagorean pentagram was sacred to the Pythagoreans, and it has the Pythagorean, one of the triangles, the golden triangle in there, the incommensurate line. It's all built into there. It's basically a mathematical operation that describes what eventually people describe as like the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence. Those are all manifestations of the principle of incommensurability. And this whole thing, 108, is the main angle of that Pythagorean golden triangle. Okay. So you have 108 and 36 and 36, what's 36 and 36? 72. When you put that 72 demons, 72 angels, 108, blah, 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 these numbers are sacred because they realized that incommensurability, a part of geometry, was a signal, a sign, a symptom. And if you look at that spiral, you see it's actually in 3 dimensions. It's not a 2-dimensional circle. It's a whoop. It's a sine wave or whatever. It's going around something. Okay. It's helical. You're getting to portals and you're getting to cool geometry and shit. So 108 is a key that points to something really, really important. And this is why it's everywhere. You see it everywhere in every spiritual mystical tradition. Now, why don't I fuck with it? Because I don't think you need to. I don't think you need that level of complexity. I think that it's one of the ways that you can open your realization is through that. Is things like that. The Buddhists have a saying. They would tell you that there's Buddhist ways for Buddhists, there are Christian ways for Christians, there's Pythagorean ways for Pythagoreans, but everybody eventually achieves Buddhahood. And some people go down that path in a way you can't even imagine. There's cat ways for cats. There's human ways for humans. There's star ways for stars. Everything has a way to Buddhahood. And I don't mean we all become Siddhartha Gautama. I mean the Buddha. We all become the awakened one. Everything awakens eventually because it's all the same thing. So there's ways for all of us, for your language, for what from your starting point, there is a way to Buddhahood. It's ingrained in me. Not because I'm a Buddhist, but because when I realized it and I saw they were saying it, I'm like, damn, they know. And so I love using some of those like Zen kind of perspectives because they're really good. They're really simple and direct. That's why I like it. Yeah, mantras are chanted 108 times, like Atropa says, and the rosary has 108 beads. It's all. Why is it always the same? Why is it always the same? Because in all of these traditions, there's the secret knowledge and there's the peasant knowledge. The peasant knowledge is do these ethical, moral things, praise the gods, do this and that, worship this, worship that, blah, 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 blah. If you do a really good job and you start to figure it out, maybe you'll get tapped on the shoulder by one of the priests and you'll get invited in the back and you partake in their rituals, and you might have to do some shady shit because a lot of that shit turned dark and evil because they wanted to control people, whatever. Some weren't like that. And you get the secret knowledge, and eventually the secrets compound upon, and you... The problem, though, with that path, that way of doing things, is that it becomes about the secrets and not about what they're supposed to teach you. And so you get these people who hoard this shit, and they become superstitious morons because their whole thing is the number 108 is magical. Dude, the number 108 is a picture. It's a bunch of letters. It means nothing. Like, this is why numerology kind of tickles me as stupid, because you have people who, working with a base 10 of mathematics, decide that a number like, say, 12 equals actually 3, because when you add it together, it equals 3. Well, that's because you're using a specific type of numerical writing. If you take 13 or 12, I should say, if you take 12 and treat it as an absolute value, it doesn't make sense anymore because it's not digitized anymore. It's literally just the absolute value of 13. You can't make that a 3, guys. 13 is only possible to make as 3 when you write it as a 1 and a 2. If you take 13 things together, you don't get 2. You don't get 3. You get 13. Now, 13 is an absolute part of logos. 13 is not a number. It is something, 13 is a relationship. If you understand mathematics, okay, yeah, and reduction is all it is. And it only works if you're using that notation. If you use binary, numerology stops working. It doesn't work anymore. So it's all kind of bullshit. Now, that doesn't mean, however, remember what I'm getting at here. The real logos of math, not math, the 1 + 1 = 2 math. I'm talking the real logos of logic, of mathematics, the real intuitive reality of math. Has nothing to do with numbers. It's all about relationship. That's why the number 3 is not important, but the Trinity is what's important. When you see me constantly harping on about the Trinity and the value of 3, I'm not talking about 3. I'm talking about the relationship between subject, object, and observer. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that Trinity that is ultimately at the foundation of the simulacrum of experience. You cannot have a mortal experience without the Trinity. That is why it's in every culture, and every tradition has a form of it. From the alchemists who have sulfur, salt, mercury, to the Trimurti in India, to in Western theism, you've got fucking the Holy Trinity, the God, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. You've got Enlil, Anu, and Enki. They all have it, guys, and they all represent the same thing. Enki is water. You can go through that's always the same. They're always the same, always the same. Why is it always the same? Because you weren't told this. You're not going to be taught this in school. The history classes intentionally leave this part out, either because they don't know or it's because it's kept from them. But people who do a legitimate, Da Vinci Code for Goths kind of study of this stuff realize that they're all trying to tell you the same thing, just in a different cultural metaphor. You see it everywhere. That's right, Faustian, relationship of sets. Bingo. And I'm not good on math, guys. Certainly not math in the notation sense. Like if someone's like, do algebra, no. Do logic, I'm a fucking king of logic. I'm not very good at math though, which is ironic because like when I was tested, like my IQ is very high and I'm fucking good at linguistics. I'm good at logic. Like if you describe a logical argument to me, I pick that fucker apart like a crab picking like food apart. Like I'm good at it. As soon as you try to get me to do a math equation, my brain just fries. I can't do mathematical equations. I don't know. I'm not good. I guess the language part of my brain burned out when I was younger or something. I don't know. Maybe I did too much weed in the 60s and I'm only 45, so don't ask me how I did it. But yeah. That's right, Faustian. Odin is Mercury and Hermes. Very good. Very true. Faustian also says, as I remember, I heard it from Alan Watts. That's probably correct because a lot of what I say, not everything, but a lot of what I say has been inspired by my time with Alan Watts. So There's times where I'm sort of paraphrasing Alan Watson, don't even know I'm doing it because I've like immersed myself so much in him. So it's possible that my version of it is something he said another way, and your version, I mean, so I don't want to take credit. When I was taking credit, I was mostly kidding. I'm mostly just being a pompous asshole. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I know I said it a certain way, and I love that saying. Let me see. I'm just reading here. Symbols are just chaotic squiggles. Symbols only look like symbols when you've learned them, right? Right, Andrew? When you look at a symbol, until you know what it means, it's just a squiggle, right? Absolutely, man. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I love when Terence McKenna, I didn't finish this lecture he did, but he talks about reality as we know it is a linguistic syntactical metaphor. Well, that's literally what I'm describing as Maya or the simulacrum. It's a realization without even psychedelics. You don't need psychedelics to realize this or even see through it. It helps. I mean, whatever psychedelics do, they disconnect whatever that is in your brain chemistry that makes you associate. When you stop associating the way you do, when you exit that delusion, you realize that this whole thing is language. Why do you think the Egyptians had this thing for naming things? Because they understood that once you name something, you've made it real in the simulacrum. You've isolated it, you've compounded it, you've made it into a construct, and you can work with it. To give something name is to have power over it. Of course, that power is an illusion, but it still works, right? From the simulacrum side of reality, to name something is to make it real. I can prove this to you with a very simple thought experiment. When you're wearing camouflage, what is the purpose of camouflage? Does camouflage make you invisible? Of course not. How does camouflage work? Camouflage works by breaking up your silhouette so your brain can't recognize you for what you are. Okay. Now, when I say naming something, let me step back for a second. Keep what I just said in mind. When I say naming something, I don't mean a verbal bleh. When I say naming, I mean the rudimentary absolute form of naming, which is identification. When you're naming something, you're identifying it. You're isolating it, you're selecting it, isolating it, and highlighting it when you name it. And the verbal part is just the last piece that goes on the top. So when you can name something, that means you've outlined it, you've found it, you've outlined it, you've highlighted it, you've brought it forward, and then you put a name on it. The naming is the last step. So when you look in the forest and someone's wearing camouflage, you don't see them. In fact, you don't even see the details of the forest. Most people, especially if you're from the city, you go out in the woods, like a deep, lush forest, you can't pick out the trees and the bushes very easily. It all blends together, doesn't it? Somebody who spends most of their life in a forest, though, can tell you that's one type of bush, that's another type of bush, and they actually see separate entities where you just see a wall of bushes. I know this from working at a nursery for years. When I first worked at the nursery, I couldn't tell where the different trees started and began. I couldn't tell one bush from another. Now I can. Now I can look at the leaves and go, that's a totally different bush. But most people would be like, that's the same bush. No, it's not. So you start to see entities. You start to pick out things that you couldn't see before. And once you can do that, you're isolating them because you're able to select them. Now you can isolate them, then you can highlight them. Now you can name them. So you're looking in the forest, your friend's wearing camouflage, you don't see them. But maybe now you notice them. For whatever reason, you notice them, you start to see them, you can select them, you can isolate them, now you can name them because you recognize them. This is the secret of everything you're doing right now. So that's what, to sort of round this around, to kind of come around to a beginning, that's what the state of Zen or Satori, whatever you want to describe it, that mindfulness state is. When you are sitting, your eyes half lidded, and you're just zoned out, that's what the gazing state is. You have softened your gaze, the outlines around reality fade away, and you see reality as just this wall of experience, and you don't have subject-object identification anymore. You just have woof, and nothing pops out. Now let things pop out. When you start, once you hit that state, now just gradually let things pop out. You might see things you didn't see before, especially if you're looking at something chaotic like a crystal ball with stuff in it, like a shimmering bit of water in a pool, looking at a dark space. You might notice patterns you would normally not notice because you've reset, everything's a blur, and now you're gradually letting patterns back into your consciousness. And when you do that, you start to have visions of shit. Trust me, that's how it works. It's very powerful. It's great practice. Do it. It's fun. You go off into some real trippy places, especially if you do a little bit of, you know what, to help you out a little bit. Yeah, that's right, Andrew. He says identity and attachment constrains you, but it's still a useful tool. Yep. What's up, Hunter Moon? Ooh, my voice is going. I'm yelling too much. I am yelling a little too much. All right, so, what other topics you want me to talk about? I saw somebody ask me about Elon. Who was asking about Elon? I don't know if you guys want me to talk about current events at all. I know that's kind of like taboo, but it's kind of nice to get away from reality, isn't it? That's a joke because we're actually trying to get into the real reality, not this bullshit. But I don't know who else. I don't know if you guys want me to talk about current events at all. That if you don't, just say so. I would rather talk about what people want to talk about. What's up, Psycho Shinobi? I like that name. Kind of reminds me of that ICP song. Like, damn, I wish I was a ninja. One of my favorite songs. One of the newer songs they did. I'm not like a big juggalo or anything, but ICP has a special. I know they're corny as fuck. Something about ICP cracks me up. It always will. I remember when I first heard ICP when I was really young. I think I was like 18 or 19 or 20. I don't remember when. And my friend had it, and they played like the Nedden game. And oh man, that was fucking, especially in the 90s, dude. That, like, nobody did shit like that. Like, that was just great. Why it was? Okay. Yeah, Shinobi was a fun game. Definitely was. I think, what was it? Shinobi 3, I think, was my favorite one. I think it was on Sega Genesis. I love ninja games, especially certain ones more than others, but I love Shinobi. Like, Shinobi 3, I think it was. I think that was the one I liked the best. You know why people hate it? If you're talking about current events, Wyatt, is that a lot of people find it divisive because by the nature of the political spectrum, it is like the politicians and the media, they make it divisive. The truth is not divisive, okay? The truth of what's going on is not divisive, but because people are in certain echo chambers, everybody's in an echo chamber, but because people are in certain echo chambers that are really dogmatic, it becomes divisive because they are being turned against each other to be dogmatic. And it's really gross, but we've got to get through it. Oh, you're right, Psycho Shinobi. In fact, there's more than a little bit of connection. The thing, so Psycho Shinobi says, Lamael, it's crazy because there's actually a connection between Japanese ninjutsu and Western magic. They're not that major, but digging deep enough, you'll find enough connections. So if you look, because of either the Silk Road and because of archetypal association, you find that there are deities all the way in Japan, all throughout Asia, that there are connected entities, deities of mythology in Hellenistic Greek. Okay, you find, was it Boreas? Goes to, basically, if you follow Silk Road, you can follow Boreas all the way. It's the same character, same cloth bag filled with air, and I forget what his name is in China, and he's in Japan too. And all now, of course, because of cultural diffusion and change over time, it's not a one-for-one. It's really hard, for example, to connect the Tengu to something in Greek mythology. But if you look, it is there. Would that be the Aranis or whatever they were called? I can't remember the name, how they pronounce it. But like, you know, would it be the Harpies? Would it be? So there's things that are connected. But once you go far enough, it's harder to find how they're connected. But I think that you're absolutely right. And in fact, you'll find a lot of connections to things. But Japanese mysticism is mostly connected through India. And things in the West is also connected to India. So it really kind of goes back to Greece and India. If you can get the Greece and India connection to any culture, you can usually find out how they're related. And in my opinion, it's not one for one. It's not exact. You can't do it to everything. There's definitely things that don't relate. But if you look at the archetypes, you can actually find the same thing. Look at animism, like Shintoism versus the animism of Africa. It's not that different. They have different customs, different words for things, but the principles are almost like they're pretty relatable, right? They're definitely relatable. If you transplanted someone from Africa who's traditional animistic, whatever, and took a Japanese person who's practicing traditional Japanese Shinto, put them in a room, gave them a translator, and let them talk as friends for a while, they'd probably agree more than they would disagree. Isn't that fucking wild? Not to me. To me, that's evidence of they're all identifying the truth like the four blind men with the elephant. Everybody is describing the same truth the best they can. That truth is knowable to everybody. Not just because of what I tell you. Yeah, Doc, it's definitely trippy, especially to a Westerner. But now imagine being from those cultures and looking at European history and mythology. Trust me, like when you see how they look at our stuff, it's pretty funny. They have a pretty trippy perspective of our stuff too. Yeah, I didn't get many like strong responses about the politics thing, but it looked like a couple of people. I don't want to talk politics, but current events is something that is important. You know, I mean, look at what just happened in Brazil. Look at what's going to happen next week. It's pretty insane. And, you know, all I'm going to say is, I told you so. I'm wondering when I get to just like spike the football and be like, I've tried to warn all of you guys. I haven't really been wrong yet. The only thing I got wrong was who was going to win 2020. That's all I got wrong. And I didn't really get it wrong because I think that person did win. I think they got cheated. And but I'm pretty sure that, you know, I have a pretty good record on this stuff. So you were 8 in 87, Atropa? How old was I in 87? I was 10. I was 10 in 87. I had to think about that. So Brazil, Shinobi Bolsonaro, quote unquote, lost the election, and all hell's breaking loose down there because I think a lot of people know. So that's right, Faustin, you did win. But you got to be careful what you say on YouTube when you're naming people, because I could get more shadow banned if I talk about this stuff too much. Wyatt, I don't have any. I go on Twitter. I follow a lot of people. I look behind the curtain and I put it together myself, dude. There's no. If you need specific sources to be informed, you're doing it wrong. You should be treating the world as a buffet. So I like to watch. When I go on Twitter, I will watch the hardcore TradCon Fundy MAGA guys. And I will also watch the hardcore lefty establishment authoritarian shit woke morons. And I will compare what they're saying. And you know what's really funny? At the end of the day, when I watch what the people on the left are saying right now compared to what the people on the right are saying, they're saying the same things about each other. That's hysterical. When I see a bunch of people on the left talking about how the right-wingers are trying to rig the elections and deny the elections because they're trying to rig them, and the people on the right are saying that the left is trying to rig them, and I'm just like, I don't know who the fuck is feeding both of these two sides the same fucking arguments and talking points, but it's like everybody's completely lost their ability to be objective and self-aware and look across the aisle and see that everybody's getting duped by somebody. Now, the question is, it's not really a question of left or right for me. It's a question of authoritarian versus not authoritarian. When I identify something authoritarian, I take a giant Luciferian satanic shit on it. When I see something that's not authoritarian, I give it a chance, right? Now, not to be political about it, but when I'm looking at the political spectrum, the groups that are being authoritarian right now are the ones that are in control. And I'm resisting the shit out of them as best I can. Because I also know I connected the dots. I've been connecting the dots for over a decade. I don't know it all, but I've been watching this stuff for a while. And the powers that be are globalistic, dynastic, even the good guys, quote unquote, okay? The people I support, unlike most of the people that support them, I know they're playing a grand game. They're not innocent. They're part of a similar, they're part of the grand families, if you will. They're part of that too, but they have a different outcome in mind. Yes, Doc, I do too. I lean hard libertarian with plenty of right, but not like nationalistic right. I am, you know, nationalistic to a point, not to a fault. I'm nationalistic in terms of sovereignty, not in terms of pride. I think that every nation should have its own sovereignty for the same reason every state should have sovereignty, for the same reason every town should have sovereignty, for the same reason every individual person should have sovereignty. You need to have these different decentralized systems of authority. Centralized authority is bad. I think that's why I get along pretty good with, what's his name? Oh shit. Russell, what's his name? Not Russell Crowe or anything dumb like that. What the fuck is his name? Oh shit. He's like suddenly got like these videos he's been doing. Oh shit. I lost a piece of my glasses. I gotta find that. I can't think of his name right now. I see Russell, but I can't see the rest of his name. I can see his face. Russell Brand. Thank you, Wyatt. What? Russell Brand. Russell Brand, I'm at least a tentative fan of. Because he's attacking the right people. And that always means that I'm going to give you a chance. Oh, motherfucker. Did I lose that part? I lost a part of my glasses. I think the bird got them. Oh, man. Probably in my hoodie thing. Another reason for me to get freaking eye surgery so I can stop wearing this shit. All right, well, I'm sure it'll turn up. Probably hooked into my... Man, that's annoying. Means my glasses are going to fall off. It's the little foot that's holding my glasses on. I dropped it. Oh, well. I'll have to order new ones anyway. So, yeah. So I like him for his libertarian perspective. I consider him a kind of libertarian for sure. Well, your parents don't like Russell Brand either? Oh my God. They call him Hitler? How the fuck could you call Russell Brand Hitler? Holy shit. Anybody who says Russell Brand's a Hitler need their fucking heads examined. How the fuck is Russell Brand a Hitler? I mean, dude. Dude. How that man, that just like floors me. That totally floors me. Mother Teresa's the biggest Satanist on earth. I mean, that's like what that sounds like to me when you say Russell Brand is a Hitler. Holy shit, man. Holy shit. Look, I can totally get like saying I don't agree with Russell Brand. I can totally get it. But calling him a Hitler, the guy who wants more freedom of speech, more decentralization, more of all the things that Hitler would hate. Oh, man. Oh, man. I mean, look, I'm not satanic, but I will say one thing. I do like Anton LaVey in a lot of ways, although he's kind of Ragnar Redbeard for goths. But one of his statements about, you know, when you get slapped on one cheek, smash them on the other, like fuck this forgiveness shit. I am way past forgiveness. Like this whole, oh, you need to give us amnesty for all the shit we did to you over COVID. No, motherfucker. I'm death cursing people. You don't even fucking know, man. Like, fuck you. We're not forgiven. We're not forgiving this. Like, I would love to meet a person like Russell Brand, because Russell Brand to me is the sane alternative. If you don't like the MAGA side, the right-wing side, he is the sane alternative. Yes, he's socialistic, but because he is emphasizing a decentralized libertarian perspective, I can at least not just tolerate that. I want to give them a chance to try, because they're not trying to force it on anybody. They're literally saying, everybody go your own way and have a chance to live your kind of life the way you want. You want to live in a capitalistic society? Here's a way to do that. You want to live in a more communistic society? We can potentially do that too. More freedom for everybody doesn't hurt anybody, right? And so that I can get with that all day long. That's why, like, certain kinds of ANCOMs, even though I disagree with them, plenty of room in my empire for them. They wouldn't be persecuted, providing they're not trying to force shit on people. That's all I'm saying. I've heard different, Atropa. I've heard from people saying that he was an abusive, like, you know, he was beating animals and shit. I don't know if it's true. It's just, we don't know him. We weren't there. His writing was very good, you know, very good perspective. I like that. The subscriber formerly known as me too. You made me laugh with your name, dude. That's great. I had one hell of a mystic experience the past few months that I would love to share with everybody on your channel if you're interested. It has everything, even a stay at the nut ward. Oh shit, dude, put that, if you're not in my Discord, get in my Discord and share that in one of the appropriate channels. And then tell everybody to join up and see it if you want, especially if it's long. It sounds like that's going to be something long. If it's something long, put it in my Discord. I don't know if I'll read it right away, but put it in there, because people would like that stuff, you know. Just understand you're going to get different perspectives on whatever happened. Yeah, Wyatt. See, that's that whole vote blue no matter who. That they are people. Okay, so I don't know how to put this without making it sound wrong. Wrong. When I say that I support a certain position, if I say, for example, I support Trump or MAGA, that's not like an identitarian cult mentality of I support them no matter what. It is that right now, when I'm faced with a binary choice of blue or red, I cannot choose red. Excuse me, I cannot choose blue. Pardon me. I don't know why I said that. I cannot choose blue right now. I cannot. And because I know things that the average person doesn't seem to know, I know that I have to help red right now. But I also know that red as a great big tent contains elements that I do not agree with. I am not there for the fundy tradcons, the people who want to ban gay people and all this kind of shit. I am not on board with them. We are not going to be friends for long. Once the authoritarian lunatics are deposed, the globalist lunatics, once they are deposed and the vote blue no matter who brainwashed people have been hopefully enlightened as to what's really going on, probably never happened for some of them. Once this changes, and once probably the implosion of the DNC, once that happens, once the globalists are fully exposed and things are on a path to rectification, my days of being in that in the company of those people will come to a hard end, because I am not on board with Ned Flanders ass fundies. Okay. I'm not their enemy, but I'm not on board. If you're trying to, you know, outlaw completely abortion, you're trying to outlaw, you know, freedom of religion, you're trying to attack, you know, LGBTQ people. As soon as this war is over, this alliance is ending. I want to make that clear. The alliance that I and many other people have with MAGA, with Trump, with all of that shit, the minute this war is over, that alliance, done. And it's time to start having a plurality of opinions, not a single, I don't want a fucking uniparty that's conservative or right wing. I want there to be room for sane leftism, for sane liberal. I want that there. What I don't want is insane globalism. Nobody in their right mind wants that. And if they think they want that, they're either misinformed or they're crazy. I mean, I don't know what trope. I'm just, because I know you've heard different. I don't know authoritatively what he was like. I'm just saying what I've heard. I appreciate his writing, you know. My guy's always been Alan Watts, so I also know that he's got some skeletons in his closet too. So, you know, his family tells a different picture of Alan Watts than we see. That's for sure. They will talk about the drunk Alan Watts. Apparently his enlightenment ended as soon as he got home. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah. Yeah, Doc, that's how I think of it. You know, leave the fucking kids alone, you know. But at the same time, if a kid legitimately is figuring out their sexuality, I don't think they should, I don't want to say too much because, you know, you get the cancel culture bullshit. But, you know, leave the kids alone, man. Let the kids grow up, and then if they want to change, let them change then. I'm not trying to say I'm not trying to judge. I'm just saying I think there's some politicization of it, and that's unfortunate. Just like with the coof, you know, if it wasn't politicized, it would have been over in a month. Like it really would have been an easy thing. But instead it was politicized. And it was all part of it. Look, I'm sorry, call it a conspiracy theory, but it was a conspiracy. I'm sorry it was. You know, I don't know. See, here's my fun observation. If I was an alien that landed in this world right now, and I was watching what's going on, one of the funnier observations that I would make is that you have people right now that are sort of passive aggressively, like nobody wants to say what's really going on for some reason. It's like if you look at the world and say you've got this group of corrupt global assholes trying to undermine the sovereignty of nations, and you call that as you see it, that's crazy. So instead, we're only allowed to talk about it in ironies and metaphors and shit like that. Like, we're not allowed to say that our current administration is under the thumb of foreign people right now. We're not allowed to say that. For some reason, if you say that, you're a conspiracy theorist, even though it's obvious. It doesn't take much, guys. You don't need proof. This isn't chemistry. You don't need to do an experiment 1,000 times and find out with like hard evidence. Like geopolitical, social stuff, criminal stuff, you don't need the level of evidence you do in science. So when people say you don't have any evidence, you can't prove it. Yes, but you can, through a priori reasoning, you can figure out what they're doing. This is like imagine you're in a house, right? And you hear what sounds like someone trying to break in. But when you go to look, for whatever reason, they're not standing there at that moment. And so someone standing next to you is like, there's nobody trying to break in the house. Don't be so paranoid. Meanwhile, the door's off its hinges. Like, that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at a situation where it's obvious what they're doing, but because we don't have any hard proof that it's happening, like they're not literally standing in our living room trying to say, take our guns or take your soul or something, because we don't have that right in front of us, for some reason, we're not allowed to say it. Meanwhile, I guess it's because people aren't ready to. It's kind of like, I guess it's because the Great Awakening is it's only slowly starting to happen now. And so not everybody knows. And so you don't want to scare away the normies. So you got to break it to them slowly. You can't be like, hey, there's this group of fucking, elite people that go back, potentially thousands of years, these families that rule everything. And they're trying to reinstitute global governance like the way they used to have it. They're trying to reinstitute, a kind of modern version of the Dark Ages. They're trying to control you. You can't tell them that because they're still living in the bread and circuses world. That's their world is still, Nike's a good company and, such and so celebrity's a good guy. They don't know. They don't know. And so you can't just tell them that it'll blow their mind. And it kind of brings me back to like what I was saying earlier about the peasant religion versus the secret truth. There are people who are ready for the truth and there's people who can't handle the truth. And so you feed them. You don't throw your pearls before swine. You throw your pearls before those who can actually wear them. And that's kind of what we're looking at. But it's really ironic because when I look at the world, I'm literally seeing World War III going on right now. World War III is ongoing right now, but it's ongoing in a less kinetic way. There's a little bit of proxy war going on. Yes, but it's not in your face. So we can't say it's World War III, but it's obviously it's literally a civil war between the elites is going on right now. There's one group that wants to keep us in free range tax farm slavery. The other group wants to put us into a kind of slavery from which there is no hope, in which you are in a cubicle, you're in a pod, you're eating bugs, and you are getting killed off generationally until they have a controllable population that's a bunch of drones. And when they don't need you anymore, they won't have you either. They'll leave a breeding population of savages left in a zoo-like environment, and they'll go off into space and live in the universe. Meanwhile, there's going to be a bunch of people with loincloths in the Amazon that are kept in invisible cages. They won't know that they can't leave the jungle. That's where they'll stay forever, and they'll watch them and treat them like animals forever. That's the far future if they get their way. So you've got, really, this kind of comes down to two options for a problem. The elites have identified a problem, and they identified this a long time ago. They've identified that as humanity goes through the Industrial Revolution, we are becoming a problem for the planet. I know that on the right, that's an unpopular position to have because they are being browbeaten with climate change. And they are rightfully pushing back against it because climate change is one of those things where there's a little bit of truth that makes the lie go down. There might even be a lot of truth that makes the lie go down. The lie is the solution. The truth may be what they're saying. They may be right about the environment suffering and blah, 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 blah. And we got to do something about it. But their solution is really the point. Their solution is to take freedom from you. You will eat the bugs. Exactly, Andrew. So it's not that it's complete bullshit. It's that there's a lot of bullshit in it, right? So the problem they identified was that humanity has the potential to overgrow the planet. And there's two ways you deal with that problem. Solution one is you guide humanity using open air, free range tax farms so that human beings have incentive to work, invent, create, grow, innovate, create technology, get off the planet, explore space, create space colonies, and humanity leaves Earth eventually and doesn't kill the planet. That's solution one. It takes longer, it's harder, and you don't get a lot of power out of it as a leader. Solution 2 is you put everybody into really tightly controlled farms where they can't do anything. You treat them like animals, you dumb them down, get them addicted to shit, and then you kill off the ones that are overpopulating. You create a breeding population, you enter this technological singularity, and you live like a god on a garden. Those are the two options. Guess which side wants versus the other side. My guess, from what it looks like from my outside perspective, is you have the globalists want that gods on earth life. They don't care about space. They probably already go to space. I'm going to be honest with you. The shit we don't know, for all we know, they already have fucking colonies on Mars that they go on vacation to. So they probably do. Like, I remember when people were saying, we never went to the moon, we faked it. No. My question is not, did we go to the moon or not? It's how many more times did we go than we said we did? And did we go when we said we did? Because it's very possible, like one person put forward a really good theory, which was that NASA or whatever had a fake version of it in case they needed it. It's very possible. In fact, it's very likely that they did. Did we go? Probably. I'm pretty sure we did. I know people who worked on the program directly. Like my friend's father built the rockets that went there. He's got pictures of the moon nobody else has. Pictures that are obviously not fake from perspectives that if it was fake, you'd know it. Samples, all kinds of shit. He's got shit that you can't get. Stuff that you're not supposed to have, but because he worked so deep in the program, he's got things nobody has. They went to the moon, guys. There is no, we didn't go to the moon. They went to the moon. I'm willing to bet my life on it. I'm just, if I lose my life. I'm not that attached to life. I'm pretty confident we went to the moon. Question is, how many times? And are we still there on the other side? Good question. Don't know. Yeah, NA, I love talking about like space colonization. I love that shit. For me, I don't really care about planetary colonization. I think that's a vain dream. I'm not saying it's one we shouldn't go for. I just think that that's like a vain, distant dream. I would rather see a bunch of O'Neill cylinders and stuff like that. I'd rather see a whole bunch of space habitats. That's what I'd like to see. You know, give me a bunch of hollowed out asteroids spinning around that give us gravity and shit. Give me that. That's what I want to see. Yes, I mean that's the issue with like those floating space colonies, the asteroid colonies and whatnot, is that you could have very authoritarian systems running them. That's one of the risks. You know, it's portrayed in The Expanse that the Belters are the free ones because they're all like flying around loose and free. It's actually more likely to be the other way around. It's more likely that those people would be more controlled because all of their resources are controlled. I think it was what was his name? David Icke, who was just saying that their plan to control humanity is to create false scarcity. That's obviously what they're doing. Okay. So when you control the resources that are like food, energy, and if you're in space, it means more than just food and energy. It means air, it means water. When you control those things, whoever's dependent on them, you are completely at their mercy. So people who lived in these mega structures, as Faustian got the right word for, if you're living in one of these mega structures, you're pretty much at the mercy of whoever runs it, whoever owns it. It's going to be like serfdom all over again. So you would need a really robust and strong constitutional enforcement that wouldn't allow those space colonies to do that. Either that, or you let anything goes and you have some that are free and some that are not. And that's that. I can imagine an absolutely dystopian future where all of these different megastructures each have their own crazy different system of government and authority and philosophy, and some are just absolute hellholes. Like, can you imagine a space colony where it's like, well, you know, you're here, that means that your children are our slaves and blah, 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 blah. I mean, you can imagine some really crazy dystopian shit. I'm surprised nobody writing sci-fi does that. Like, if I was going to write sci-fi, I don't have enough of a science fiction mind to write sci-fi, because my style of sci-fi is like somewhere between hard science fiction. So it's sort of like The Expanse. I like that kind of science fiction. But I really like, you know, short story, hypothetical, you know, far out. Like, I'm not into space fantasy. Like, I don't like space magic. Like, I would write about that because I know about that. But the kind of science fiction I like is like Asimov and like Heinlein and like that kind of stuff. You know, like I like that kind of stuff, like really speculative. I love Dune, although that's space magic, to be honest. Dune's an exception, I guess you could say. I like the stuff that asks like really wild questions about reality. Those are the ones I like. But yeah. I don't know. David Icke, he's up there with Alex Jones, where I don't trust him, but at the same time, they tell enough truth that it's like, are they controlled opposition? Are they acting crazy so they don't get murdered? Like, what's the deal? You know, like David Icke's thing with the reptiles, you know, I know people live by that. I've known people who say I've seen them and all that. Look, I haven't. I've got no evidence or belief in it. I only believe in what I can prove to myself. I've seen no evidence of the reptile people, guys. I've seen evidence of vampirism in the energetic level in the spirit world. So if he's saying that there are reptilian entities in another dimension that are maybe, you know, maybe they appear as reptiles to some people. Maybe. You know, tentatively, I'll give it a maybe. If you're saying that there are people wearing human suits that are lizards in human suits, like the movie V or the TV show V, I'm going to call bullshit on that until you can prove it. And you got to show me more than some videos that don't work anymore, by the way. I don't know if you noticed, like those old videos where you'd see the people, you know, like their eyes get slits in them. Like, I can explain that with the lighting of the cameras, dude. If you watch the lighting of like when people are doing interviews for like a professional, you know, some of those cameras, like they cause that kind of a lighting effect that your eye looks like a slit. I've done it to myself. I don't have fucking slit eyes, dude. I'm not a reptile. If I was, I wish I knew it. That'd be pretty cool. So I don't personally believe. Does that mean it's not true? I can't disprove it. So I will keep my mind open to it. I scoff at it until it's proven, because to me, that sounds to me like flat earth stuff. It sounds like something that's there to discredit the truth. So here's where David Icke gets toxic. David Icke will talk about the truth. He'll talk about the families. He'll talk about all of this shit. And then he'll say lizard people, and like, that's how they discredit the truth, right? Think about this for a minute. You embed the truth in the most outlandish, crazy bullshit story you can imagine. That's how you get it to be ignored. Why do you think you have people who are willing to believe anything, who listen to people who David Icke and Alex Jones, and they're more informed about what's going on right now than everybody else, but they still believe cuckoo shit that you know isn't true? Right? That's what I'm getting at, is that they, I guess, allowed the truth to come out through them to make it sound crazy, so people who are a little bit less insane will never believe it. That's what I think is going on. I don't trust Icke. I don't trust Alex Jones. But at the same time, they're really ineffective at hiding the truth, because so much of what they said forms the underlying rebellion that's going on. So much of what they said has turned into the rebellion that's going on. And that's undeniable. I remember when I was watching during the early days of 2020, and they were starting to lock people down. And I saw David Icke give a speech, and tears were rolling down my face because he was invoking Lucifer in a way that I was jealous of. He was preaching freedom on a level that only a true Luciferian could do. And I'm like, is this motherfucker a Luciferian in disguise? But then maybe he's completely right. Maybe he's completely full of shit. So here's my suggestion to you all. Instead of approaching Icke or Jones or any of these people from a position of belief or disbelief, what I suggest you do, consume their content, but always keep what they're saying on like a shelf, like a stack, sprinkle it with salt all the time. Don't just believe. Don't just believe. Open your mind to it, but don't believe it. That is to say, listen to Icke and then look at the world and see what correlates to what he's saying. Listen to Alex Jones, see what's correlating in the world to what he's saying. If you see the pattern, you don't need them anymore. I don't listen to Alex Jones anymore at all. I probably never will except for fun. I don't listen to David Icke anymore except for fun. Once in a blue moon. Because I don't need to know what they think anymore. I'm able to see the pattern myself. Does that mean I don't listen to any conspiracy theorist stuff? Of course I do. But I don't need them. I'm not a cult follower. I don't do that shit. Oh yeah, I mean, Alleyman asked, do you have any proof of extraterrestrials? Just look up in the sky and see how big it is. If the universe is infinite, there's no way we're the only life form in the universe. The question is there extraterrestrial life of a sufficient level of intelligence and technological sophistication to reach us and ever interact with us? That's the question that we don't know the answer to from a rational perspective. My personal belief, okay, and this is just my assumption belief. When I say it's a belief, what I'm literally saying to you is I don't know, but this is what I'm operating on as my current philosophy. I don't think that extraterrestrials have come here physically yet at all. I think the distances between the planets are too great. Does that mean that there isn't a way to do faster than light? Maybe there is. The problem is anyone that can go faster than light, technologically speaking, doesn't need to come here. Like the only reason you would come here would be for the show, right? There's literally, even at our own current level of technological capability, if we could go faster than light, we'd have no reason to bother with a planet. You could get every resource you need just by going through our solar system, sucking down the resources you want. There's like infinite water, infinite hydrogen, infinite gold, infinite everything. Like once you get space travel like in your belt as easy as we do, like, you know, flying in a plane, once space travel is to that level, even just in our solar system, you've literally activated infinite resource God mode for the video game of humanity. There's literally, like, at that point, it's all bets are off, because you don't need to go. No alien would have to come here for water, for food, for anything. With our own level of technology, we would know how to do. We don't need more than we have. If all you need is the ability to get there affordably, the level of technology humanity has, we actually have enough to do everything you would need to colonize the universe, or at least the galaxy. It would take, I forget, like 40, I think it was like 100,000 years or something. You could colonize the entire Milky Way galaxy in around 100,000 years. I forget the exact amount. With current level technology, you just have to have the infrastructural commitment, the logistical commitment to do it, which we don't have. So we're not doing it because we don't have a reason to do it. Yeah, Doc, purely exploration is the only reason. Now, here's the thing. Let me interject another idea. If you have faster than light travel, you don't need to come here for exploration at all. Not in the way that you would think, because you probably have automation on a level where you can send drones to do all that. So they could warp into our solar system, use their sensory data, and warp back to their solar. They wouldn't even have to come here. So I kind of feel like it's more likely that if extraterrestrial intelligences have visited this system, they probably didn't come here biologically. And if they did, they came here probably as intelligences that could be downloaded and uploaded into different systems. So what I'm talking about is, imagine that they were able to sort of, I don't like to say upload themselves into machines, because that's, consciousness isn't in your brain. Like, consciousness is focused on your brain. Your brain doesn't generate consciousness. You can't just copy paste your brain into a computer and there you are. You're now, it doesn't work that way. It's like the teleporter on Star Trek. Like, it dissolves your body and reconstitutes that. Literally every time you walk into a teleporter, you're being destroyed and being rebuilt. Like, it's killing you every time. Like, if you even though in the Star Trek terminology, it's sending the energy of your body down, they're literally saying that they can take your soul and send that down, right? It's literally deconstructing you, turning you into energy and beaming that energy down and reconstituting you. It's killing you and rebuilding you every time. It's a nightmare. It's like I mean, if you were being honest about it, it's a nightmare scenario. It's hell. So what I think would be more likely is it's really, really, really inefficient to send biological bodies here. I think that they would have a different way of getting here. Maybe they'd send a probe, or maybe Devin McLean brings up the Law of One books. We're talking about Ra, right? One theory is that Ra is an extraterrestrial intelligence that's of a higher level of consciousness. So it's got an expanded level of consciousness. It knows that all is one. It has a non-dual sense, and it's able to commune with our intellect, right? Through whatever means, hypnosis, whatever. Possibly. When people say that the gods are aliens, I'm not saying I agree with that, but I'm not saying I disagree with it. I think it's very possible that some people in their trances, maybe they're communicating with extraterrestrial intelligences. I don't know. I'm not in their head. I don't think that's what it is for me, but maybe it is, and I just don't see it that way. So I never heard of Mark Piasso or Passio. I've never even heard of him. Esoteric anarchist. That's an interesting question. I don't know. If you're in my Discord, I think somebody's asking for my Discord before. In the description of this video, there is a Linktree link. You can find my Discord link in there. I forgot that. I meant to mention that before. I really apologize. Yeah, I mean, NA brings up a robotic body. Yes, maybe. Or maybe a clone body. I'm not saying it's yes or no. I don't think that... Look, I think that it could be... How do I put this? I don't like the word agnostic, but I'm close to agnostic on the alien question. There are reasons for me to believe it, and there's reasons for me to deny it. I don't want to say they've never been here, and I certainly don't want to say they've been here. I have done regressive hypnosis when I was younger because I thought I had abduction experiences. Not making that up, not saying... One of the reasons I'm highly skeptical is because my own experiences were such that it could have been me imagining it or hallucinating it. I cannot in good conscience, say that I believe in it. Even though if you were there with me when I was, you'd say, well, Thorne, how could you say you don't believe in aliens? Didn't you have regression where you believe you were abducted? Yes, I do. Does that mean I still think that? No, I don't. I don't think that's what it was. Is it possible that's my memory cap and I'm not allowed to remember? Very possible. Yeah, maybe I was abducted and they did put the sphere in my brain like I remember. Maybe all that happened and now I've been programmed not to believe it. Hey, you know what? I don't know. That could be true. But I resist it for a reason, the same reason that I resist but seek, right? So when I got back into magic in 2018, I approached it from this perspective that it probably wasn't real, but I was going to treat it real anyway and see what happens. Because when I was growing up, I did it all the time and I believed in it 100%. Then I became a hardcore, dogmatic, rational skeptic. Then I became more of an open-minded person again because of the experiences I had with non-duality. So I said, you know what? Let me practice magic again and work with spiritual entities again. Let me pretend they're real, go through the whole motion as if they're real, and see what happens. Let me really test it. Let me totally with a like desire to believe if it's true, like not trying to disprove it or prove it. Let me do this as if it's real and see what happens. And when I did that, I had experiences I couldn't explain again. So what do? Do I say, well, this was just bullshit and it was, I can't, look, I wouldn't be doing this. It changed my life again. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't a life-changing experience. So like that, if there's any way for me to go and test or explore the alien question, I would jump at it. And I would jump at it not from a I'm not going to believe it perspective, but from a I want to know. And I'm willing to believe. I'm going to be completely agnostic about it until I have proof. And unless I have proof of a negative, which you can't prove, I'm going to stay agnostic about it. Until I can prove aliens have never been here before, I'm agnostic about it. Meaning I'm willing to believe it. And I'm not even going to fight it. I just need to see something believable. That's all. Now, people are going to say, well, what about all that UAP stuff that the military is bringing out? There's a lot of layers to that. On the one layer, there's Donald Trump, I believe, was the one who is behind that current release. The thing that's being released to Congress soon. I'm pretty sure he was the one who said, do it. Which is kind of funny because, like, if I was president, one of the first things I'd do, like, as soon as I got behind the closed doors, I'd be like, show me all the alien shit. Like, that's like the first thing I would do. That kind of speaks volumes about what I think, doesn't it? Literally the first thing I would do, like, after taking office and doing all the important, like, you know, after wiping my ass as president, basically, once I was ready to just do what I want, the first question I'd ask is be like, show me the alien stuff. I want to know. All of it. Like, whatever you can, I want to know. I would become president just to prove or disprove the alien thing. So, you don't want to be probed, Atropa? Yeah, Devon, you're exactly right. He says, it's vital to admit we just don't know some things. Some people are adamant this way or that way. Completely agree with you. That's how I stand on the alien question. I think the UAPs, my hunch, you know, my belief hunch is that UAPs are military technology from maybe the US, maybe China, maybe Russia, doesn't matter. I think that they are probably military tech that is either being misidentified or purposely being shown this way. Now, the reason they might show it this way, well, there is a conspiracy theory that says that the elite, one of the final phases of their plan is to fake an alien invasion to get everybody to submit. That's a far out thing. But seeing what they did with the coup in 2020, I don't think it's that far out, do you? Now, I have a politics Gilded, like it's like Discord, but it's for politics, and it's on Gilded because Gilded's less censorious. In my Gilded, we talk about stuff like the coup being. I'm on YouTube, so I'm gonna say I don't want to say fake, but fake, right? When I say that, I don't mean I'm kind of being hyperbolic. Something happened for sure. Yeah, Project Bluebeam. Thank you. That was a good one, Patchwork. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, NA, you might be right. I mean, I've seen some of those things people were posting. They were showing like cattle mutilation and human mutilation stuff. And I'm like, I gotta be honest with you. As a morbid motherfucker, I've looked into like how bodies decompose and this whole like, oh, they remove their eyes and shit. I'm like, have you ever watched like what happens if a body stays out and animals get at it? Like if you die in your house and you've got a cat and nobody finds you for like a month, your cat's going to eat your eyes and your eyelids and your lips off. It's going to look like a lot of those pictures. So this whole idea that like, you know, people are being given to aliens so they can pull our parts out. To me, that sounds kind of BS because, I just think that that implies that aliens are stupid. You know what I mean? Like they can't, like they don't have the technology to figure out our biology without literally dissecting us with like, you know, fucking grapefruit spoons and shit. Like it seems kind of, you know, I think it's kind of bullshit. Now, Inerta says it's a mixture of both ET and military tech. That's on my plausibility level. Yes. I'm not saying it is that. I'm saying I am willing to accept that some of that UAP shit is ET tech. I am also willing to accept the possibility, although it's a remote one, the possibility that 200 years ago or so, contact was made and we were given, hey, you know what? If you guys organize yourselves as a unified society, we'll help you, uplift you, and then we'll put you into, you know, the planetary system of planets, right? And all we ask is that you're a united body of Earth with a certain set of things so that we know you're not going to be some chaotic thing that's added to the global, to the universal community. So we want you to have a one world government, more or less, and it's got to be under strict control so that your people don't go crazy and start attacking aliens and shit. That could be what happened, man. It could be what happened. Do I think that's what happened? No, but I think it was Elon who said, you know, reality tends to go the crazy, like whatever, like of all the possible options, it's usually the funniest and most ironic that's true. The craziest that's most true. I mean, esoteric anarchist, I get what you're saying, but I actually have the opposite perspective. I think that falling on their knees part, that was the Great Awakening starting. I think that was it because enough people, look, the Great Awakening isn't for everybody. Like people misunderstand this idea of the Great Awakening, everyone's going to, no. The Great Awakening isn't going to happen for everybody. Not equally anyway. Some people are going to benefit from the Great Awakening who will never awaken. That's what always happens. Freedom, you know, when the United States became what the United States became, you know, warts and all, not everybody benefited from it. Number one, some people it made their lives worse. And a lot of people who were benefited by it wanted to stay with the British. There was a lot of British loyalists who ended up benefiting from the American Revolution. So, yeah, that's right. Inerta, Bob Lazar never changed his story. We gotta say facts as they are. Yeah. You know, I like I said, I am open. I am not closed-minded to it. I have reasons to doubt, right? Like I press X to doubt, but I'm not putting the controller down. Like I'm not done with the conversation. I press X to doubt, and if it ever becomes proven, I'm probably going to be that most hypocritical motherfucker who's going to like just imagine like the day before the aliens land and say hi to everybody, I'll be doing a live stream saying there's no such thing as aliens. And the aliens will come and they'll fucking say, hey, we're here. I'll be like, I fucking knew it. And I'll be such a fucking hypocrite the next day. Trust me, you can set your watch to that one. I guarantee you that's how it's going to go down. I'm going to be like, there's no such thing as aliens. Holy shit. Hi, ET. I knew you were here the whole time. I'm going to totally eat my hat. You watch. It's going to be the funniest fucking thing. Oh man. Yeah, NA, sleeping is definitely more pleasant, no doubt. You know what's funny? I've been remarking to my wife a lot lately that even though I knew what was up, like around 2008 or 2009, that's when I started to realize what's going on. Even in like the worst parts of like 2010, 2012, where like I started to really know it all, dude, that time period was like heavenly compared to right now. Like all the shit that was pissing me off, like all the woke stuff creeping in, I would happily trade our current level of woke for the level of woke we had from like 10 years ago. Happily, like bring that back. We could just flood it with that kind of woke. That's fine. Like that was so tame by comparison. Holy fuck. It's bad when you're looking back at the bad old days and going, I wish they were here again. Alpha says they're going to prove I'm fine with that, dude. I totally welcome it. If that happens, look, that's like, I would be happy to be wrong. If I am proven wrong about that, because I'm not really trying to say I'm right. If I eat my words on the alien thing, I will eat that hat with absolute aplomb and joy. I'll be like, this is the most delicious fucking eating crow I've ever had. This is great. Because I'll be too excited and happy to know that there's extraterrestrials that are like smart and shit. I'll be following that. Like I will be signing up to meet them. I'll be like a total, like, you know, I'll be swinging from the alien nuts if they have them. Trust me. All right, Psycho Shinobi. Have a great evening too, bro. Or broette. Alpha. Because they probed him before. DH doesn't want to remember. They went the wrong way. They went in the Audi. They went, no deliveries in the back door, man. Oh my God. You might be right. I don't know. Maybe they violated my butthole and I don't want to have it happen again. One thing you just said, Andrew, is not wrong. I actually agree on a level there because I believe that we're going to discover very plausibly. I know from my own working with non-dual and other mystical philosophies that there is a multiverse. Now, the question is, you know, how does it matter, right? From us in our little bubble here, does it matter? My understanding of manifestation, which is my current work in progress philosophy of metaphysics, in theory, the divine consciousness can go anywhere in the multiverse, and you can, just like the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, except instead of bringing it here, you go there. It is theoretically, more than theoretically possible. In fact, I believe it's what's happened to me many times. When you see the most outlandish supernatural thing, and then later it turns out it was something mundane, I have no doubt that your consciousness went to a dimension of the multiverse where that really happened, and then you came back to this one because of whatever reason. So like maybe you're doing a ritual and you see Lucifer sitting in front of you on a chair having a chat with you. And in your mind, it's completely real. Like you touched him, you felt him, it seemed completely real. And then later on, someone's like, oh, I just slipped you some psychedelics. You were hallucinating. Both could be true at the same time. It's possible that you weren't hallucinating. It's possible Lucifer really was there, but it was because you went to another dimension. When you came back to the side. Just to make, now, that sounds a little bit circular. I admit, it's very circular reasoning, but it would explain some things quite effectively. So when you say anything and everything is real, if there is a multiverse, I agree. You know, I completely agree that it's probably true. And, you know, one of my favorite studies is the different kinds of multiverse. So Max Tegmark, very influential on some parts of my current metaphysical work. He speaks of 4 primary types of multiverse. There's probably more. He talks about 4 from an article from, I believe, Scientific American from the 90s. I've had links to it. If you look up Max Tegmark multiverse, you'll find the article. It's in PDF. It's a great fucking read. It's very superficial and quick, but it's a great read for the layman. It's a wonderful perspective. So he talks about a type 1 multiverse. He talks about type 2, type 3, and type 4. Type 1 multiverse is almost certain. Like it's, the idea of a type 1 multiverse is pretty much, you'd actually have to prove we're not in that. Because a type 1 multiverse is based on the idea that if space-time is infinite, or if it's large enough, so if the universe is big enough, eventually there will be another copy of you somewhere in that universe. In other words, there's only so many different ways that matter and energy can configure themselves before it has to repeat as a pattern. So if you go far enough in any one direction, you will eventually encounter yourself again, not because the universe wraps around like a ball, like the Earth is a globe, but because sooner or later, the configuration of matter that is you will exist somewhere in the universe again. Now, that hinges on the idea of how big is the universe? Well, it just so happens, according to all of our current ability to measure, the universe is either completely flat, in other words, it's infinite in size, or it is so big that it's at least big enough to fit at least one or two exact copies of our, like, in other words, it's so big that it's inevitable you'd run into yourself, basically. It may not be infinite, but it's so big that you could repeat the configuration of the universe many times. There's actually a literary form of this called the Library of Babel. You can look this up online. It's B-A-B-L-E, I guess, Library of Babel. If you look this up, it's literally an algorithm that contains every book in the universe. Every possible book is there. That means that somewhere in that library is a book that describes, warp drive that would work. It's like the value of pi. It's an infinite number. So somewhere in that number is a code that if you put it into a computer could simulate the universe. In that same idea, there is in this current universe as we see it, if it's infinite in size, then it repeats. Then there's the type 2 universe. Type 2 universe is this idea that every black hole leads to a new pocket universe, and that our own universe is in a pocket of a black hole in another universe, and so on. It's like little bubbles creating new bubbles. That is a kind of multiverse as well. It's also possible that in the type 1 universe, you've also got type 2 universes embedded in them. Go figure. Now, then there's type 3 multiverse. A type 3 multiverse and a type 1 multiverse might as well be the same thing, but could be explainable due to hyperdimensionality, meaning more than just the dimensions that we consider normally. Okay? So the type 3 multiverse is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. This idea is that for every possible quantum state, there exists a reality in which that occurs. Now, the big flub originally with the many worlds principle was that for that to be true, according to the science at the time, every time you had a potential split in the universe, you'd have to create a whole new universe out of that moment. That obviously breaks thermodynamics because you'd need infinite energy every second to create a whole new universe instantaneously, fully formed, right? So that's obviously not possible, according to what we know. However, there is a concept which I ascribe to, which is basically the Akashic record, but for materialists, and that is the hyperdimensional block time multiverse. Hyperdimensional meaning time space is not just 3-1 like we know it, but it may have a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 12th, a millionth dimensions that we don't comprehend. And those dimensions exist simultaneously, meaning time is an illusion and the observer consciousness is what's moving through that block time multiverse. That's what I teach, is that principle, except from a more mystical perspective. The reason I like is because it resonates with what the mystics said. The mystics said the same thing. They would say, The divine is infinite. That is you. You are the divine. The divine is infinite. It is eternal. It is timeless. Time is an illusion. This is an illusion. The world doesn't move. The mind moves. All of these things that I'm telling you fit with the hyperdimensional block time multiverse principle. So type 3 multiverse, like the type 1, we have from the quantum level of science, we have evidence for it because we see the quantum wave effect. And a guy just won a Nobel Prize for proving that the universe is not locally real. If you understand what that means, that's another feather in the cap for many worlds, just so you know. That means that nothing that you encounter has an objective absolute reality to it until it's interacted with. That means everything exists in a completely suspended state of potential. That means that an oxygen atom is not an oxygen atom until you test for it. Before that, it is pure potential. That is another feather in the cap of many worlds. It just is. Okay. That means that when you test for it, the observer is going down a fork in the timeline of possibility. Fucking incredible discovery. People are still, I can't wait like 100 years from now. People will be like, this guy D.H. Thorne was talking about this shit. How? I feel like Alan Watts, when Alan Watts was like predicting like fucking virtual reality and everything. Like they're probably gonna, I really hope that my videos like survive me. And in like 200 or 300 years, people are like, damn, how did this guy figure this out? I mean, he was talking about it from a Stone Age level, but he was in the right direction. I would love that. I would love to just reincarnate and watch that. So that's type 3. Type 4 multiverse is even more wild than all the others. Type 4 multiverse postulates that not only is it likely that the universe is infinite in size, not only that a type 2 universe is possible, or even a type 3 universe is possible, it's also possible that the very laws of nature as we understand them are not fixed. What this means, and we know this, by the way, this is not an assumption. We know that the laws of nature, as we have them understood, and I got something important to say about that in a minute. The laws of nature as we understand them were decided around the time of the Big Bang, and the values that the relationships that they have is a better way to put it. The relationships between the fundamental forces were sort of, condensed out of the Big Bang, were not set before that. So before that, those forces didn't exist in the way they do now. They might have existed, but their values were different. They coalesced into what they are now. And one of them, at least according to current cosmological understanding, did change, and that was whatever it was that caused their expansionary period that happened where you had rapid expansion. That alone points to the idea that the fundamental laws of physics they're not constants, they are variable. They're just not variable on short time scales. So this means that, in theory, the laws of nature as we understand them don't apply to the entire multiverse. We may just exist in one paradigm of all the possible ways that the laws of nature could exist. So there could be universes where gravity goes backwards. There could be universes where electricity makes, fart smells when it turns on your light. I don't know. Anything you can imagine and more. So that type of multiverse would have even more multiverses than a type 1, a type 2, or a type 3. You could have a type 1, type 2, type 3 multiverse nested in a type 4 in which there's infinite possibilities of infinite possibilities. And the madness that brings, that's Lovecraft level cosmic horror madness. So esoteric anarchists, my whole beef with the simulation hypothesis people is that they're basically describing Advaita and Neoplatonism and all these other things. They're basically describing that, but they don't want to commit to the mystical side of it. They want to pretend that we live in a computer of some kind. The reality is, it is undoubtable that we're simulating reality because you're doing it right now. Everything you're doing is a simulation. Like, that's what bothers me about these materialistic morons. These Aristotelian cultists that nothing wrong with Aristotle, but they've devoted their entire philosophy to just that one perspective. They've ignored Platonism. They've ignored Neoplatonism. They're just Aristotelian bumping particle cultists. That's all they are. They can't wrap their head around the idea that what they see and experience is just an overlay of reality. It's not Kantianism. What's his name? David. I always forget his name. He's one of the guys behind panpsychism. I forget his name. If anybody knows it, it's like, I think it's David, or is it Robert? I'll have to look it up. Oh shit. Damn it. He talks about like the desktop overlay reality. But he talks about how our perception of reality is like a desktop operating system. We don't see reality. We see a phenomenal reality. We see a projection. When we say that there's an electron there, we're not saying there's really an electron there. We're saying there's a detection of an electron, right? We're calling the detection an electron. An electron is a theoretical construct. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as an electron, photon, atoms. All of that are theoretical mental constructs. This soda can is a theoretical mental construct. That doesn't mean that it doesn't represent something real. It just means that soda cans don't exist. Bleh exists. We call it a soda can. Very difficult for people to understand. Okay. So Tom says it's a metaphorical. Maybe he might like what I'm working on with manifestationism then. That's consciousness like a simulation. I'd have to see it specifically what he's saying. I might have to see it because I do run into quasi mystical scientific people, and a lot of them would be well served if they would put down a certain rational skeptical dogmatism and spend some time in fucking, transcendental meditation. or do a fucking heroic dose of something and fucking find out. Because you can, like Andrew, who was it said? Devin, I think it was. Who was it that asked it? Someone said NA asked if you could prove this. I don't need any resources or time to do it, man. If you follow certain transcendental practices, it will begin with a realization of what I'm calling non-duality, but non-duality is just a term that's best for me. You could go with monist. There's a lot of different terms that fit. When you have gnosis, samadhi, when you have this realization of union with the divine, once the non-dual awakening, once the subject-object duality is destroyed and dissolved, and there is only that which is, conscious of itself as one thing as a non-dual, not two, one without a second. Once you have that is, you don't come back from that and go, maybe I'm wrong. It's literally, it's not debatable for you. It's not debatable anymore. Like, this is why people who have had those awakenings, you can't talk them out of it. It's not even a dogma issue. It's like, could you talk somebody out of what they've seen with their own eyes? Could you argue that they hallucinated? Of course. But are they likely to believe that? No. If you go right now and see a sunset, if I said you didn't see a sunset, would you believe me? Would you entertain my argument for very long? Probably not. So once you've had the experience, when I say that, that's linguistically inaccurate, but it's all I can say. Once you've had this non-dual awakening experience, it's non-negotiable. You spend the rest of your life trying to communicate it and to learn ways to explain it to people so that you're not the only one who remembers it. And you probably spend the rest of your life trying to do it again, and you'll probably succeed. And as you do that, shrooms don't hurt, Hunter. Shrooms is the one way to do it. Hardcore meditation is the other. And if you combine the two or some other assisted chemicals, ooh, doggy. Like, I don't want to brag, and I don't want to give anybody any ideas because, you know, legality issues. But a little bit of the right, the Spanish call it papaya, a little bit of the right, you know, a little bit of that grassy stuff. A little bit of that is not technically a psychedelic, but if you combine that with certain meditative transcendental practices, you're going to go away because it really helps you disconnect from this. It really does. It can really help with that disassociation that you need to get. Totally agree with you, Hunter. So if you combine, you don't need the chemicals though. I want to be here to tell you now, I've never done the psychedelics, but I can tell you from experience, you don't need them to have a less intense version, or maybe it's just as intense. I've met people who've had transcendental awakenings that were every bit as intense as a psychedelic trip. My own was like a very low level psychedelic. It was like I couldn't tell if I was just daydreaming or if it was really happening, if that makes sense. Like it was definitely like a weird, like out of body, but I was still embodied kind of way. It was really weird. I actually thought that my friend might have slipped me a psychedelic at work. I really did. I was like, did they fucking put a tab of acid in my shit? Like, did they put something in my food? And if so, how come it only, like, did they put some DMT in my drink, some sativa or something like that? Yeah, I don't know. So, but yeah, to go the rest of the way, into realizing this multidimensional stuff. The multidimensional stuff is just the materialistic side of me talking about it. When you have that non-dual transcendental awakening, you go deep enough into it. That is to say, you've transcended enough of this bullshit. You begin to realize how this materializes again when you come back. Like you figure out on the way back, you see it pop, you see reality coming back. Like if that makes sense, like it reforms in a way that feels like you're zooming in. It feels like whoosh, like you're landing back in your body. Not like you went out of your body, but it feels like you zoomed way the fuck out and now that's why they call it expanded consciousness. You zoom way the fuck out and it looks like nothing because you're seeing everything and you're not seeing it. It's an awareness. And when you come back to this, it's like you're bang and you're coming. It's like imagine you're getting pulled away from the earth and then you're smacking back down into it. It's like you zoomed way out and then you're focused right back in again. That's what it's like. And as you're coming back, you see how reality's put together. Once you see how reality's put together, you begin to realize that the world you see is a bunch of symbols for something you can't explain with language. You realize that this thing you're seeing is your brain. You're not seeing reality. None of you right now see reality. You see what your brain's doing. And your brain isn't even what you think it is. Your brain's a part of the divine. Your brain is an enigmatic little ripple in the infinite. And you're watching that right now, and you're having this experience of life through that perspective, but that perspective isn't even real. Your brain thing, your brain enigma is in relationship to everything else. And so your brain reflects like the drops of dew on Indra's web. It reflects everything else. So your brain has a perspective of everything in the multiverse, even from here. There's a little bit of the multiverse in you. It's a macrocosmic microcosm. It's a perfect, holographic, fractal, echo, macrocosm, microcosm. It's all, your brain has the infinite in it, and the infinite has a brain in it, and they perfectly reflect. This brain is in relationship to everything, and everything's in relationship to this brain, and consciousness is watching this brain and hallucinating reality based on that brain's behavior, activity, evolution, whatever word you want. Because we don't have a word for timeless change, do we? That's the difficult thing about the philosophy I'm trying to teach, is that Time's an illusion, but you still got to deal with the apparent evolution of time. Let's see. NAS, so is ego death real, and what does that mean exactly? Oh boy, that's a can of worms. So ego death is actually really easy. I am willing to bet that everybody listening to me right now has gone through ego death. The thing is, you just didn't know you were doing it, and so it didn't count. Ego death it's also got levels, like many things, levels of intensity, levels of purity. At its lowest, most level, if you were ever driving down the road and just lost in the enjoyment of the driving and you weren't thinking about anything, you were just driving and you were fully present in the moment driving, and you weren't worried about the present, you weren't worried about the past, the future, you were just literally just mellowed out driving. You weren't thinking, there was no running thoughts, no daydreaming. You were just present in the moment, enjoying the drive. It's a pretty relatable experience. A lot of people who drive can relate to that. If that's ever happened to you, congratulations. You've experienced a very, 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 like, just tip of the superficial level of ego death. Because you've actually, in that moment, there's no egoistic chatter going on. You're just consciousness present in the moment. That's basic ego death. Now, you can have much more. When I say you, that's a linguistic no-no, because you don't have ego death, right? Ego death is not something you have. Ego death is something that happens. You can have much more intense and vivid levels of ego death, where you can do it on purpose, right? You can do it from meditation. Psychedelics can lead to it. Depending upon how you like to describe the word ego death. Now I think it was Freud who came up with ego death, right? Was it Freud or Jung? I think it was Freud. So before Freud, we didn't have a word for this. Most people would just called it samadhi or whatever. Enlightenment, gnosis, epiphany, whatever. If you are good at meditation, when I say good at meditation, I mean, you do transcendental meditation enough so that you disobjectify. You go through ego death every time. If you are really like well integrated so that you're walking around in your life without any conscious thinking going on, that doesn't mean there aren't thoughts. It doesn't mean conscious thinking. It means that you're attending to the thoughts. Unconscious thinking means you're not paying attention to them and your mind's quiet. Now, I exist most days for most of the day like that. I don't have a lot of chatter in my head. I have sporadic, occasionally when I need to think a word or something, I'll think words. Most of the time, there's no pictures, there's no words in my head. Most of the time, everything I'm doing is spontaneous and intuitive. I don't know what I'm going to say, at least not from the way, I shouldn't say I don't know. I don't have a thought that precedes. I don't have thoughts that precede or follow. I literally just go about what I do. That is considered a form of ego death. You can actually tell when I'm egoistic versus when I'm not. It's not hard. If I can tell you when it's happening. I know when it's happening. I'm usually suffering. I'm usually angry, or I'm usually upset, or I'm trolling somebody, or they're trolling me, or I'm getting offended by bullshit people are saying to me. That's usually when you can tell, is Thorne in an egoistic state right now or not? Now, sometimes I'm in a non-egoistic state and I'm still acting egoistic, because to me at that moment, I'm wearing a mask and I am trying to make a point or whatever. So I will act a certain way, but I can tell when I'm egoistic and when I'm not. So that ego death state is actually very common for me on a lower level. The deeper level of ego death, 'cause The last time I had a really, really, really funny one, like where I like knew it was happening, if that makes sense. Because most of the time you don't recognize it's happening, or you do, but it's like, this time was funny. I'd done a little too much, you know, sativa. And I went to meditate on it, laying down. And I did out-of-body meditation, if that makes sense. And when I did that, so I basically had couch lock. I went beyond couch lock, like way beyond couch lock. And I'm laying there doing out-of-body breathing and all this kind of stuff that you do with out-of-body. So usually out-of-body works where you're trying to induce like sleep chemical in your body without your brain falling asleep. So you keep your mind active and you don't move. So I was thinking and visualizing things on purpose. So I'm visualizing, I'm daydreaming, I'm imagining getting out of my body and all this kind of stuff. And I felt little tickles on my face and I ignored them. And next thing I know, I'm seeing what I can only describe as psychedelic, you know, colors and shapes in my mind's eye all of a sudden. Like I went from just having like cutesy little, like whatever I imagined, to like warping through. Look, it's just fucking weed, dude. It's not a psychedelic, but I was having a psychedelic trip on weed. I'm fucking warping through like psychedelic colors, tunnels, all kinds of shit. Felt the buzzing that comes with out of body. And I reached this point where I'm like, who the fuck am I? And I didn't know. I had no clue. Like normally when I have any kind of an ego death experience, I remember who I am. Like if I try, I go, oh yeah, I know who I am. This was like I couldn't remember who I had total brain death. I had no idea who I was, but I knew I was there. Like if that I knew what I was like, whoa. Like it was actually really fucking, I could not remember myself. I'm sitting there like, who the hell are you? What does that even mean to ask that question? Like it just started to break down. And the next thing I knew, I was sitting there having what in my mind I knew to be a combination of lucid dream, out-of-body experience, and multiversal travel. I know that sounds insane. That sounds like the kind of shit I usually poo-poo when people talk about because I tend to try to keep things rational. But I was having those, that's when it was happening, I knew that's what it was. And I started seeing reality morphing from dimension to dimension, reality paradigm to paradigm. I remember it kind of reminded me of that Mid-Journey kind of art, but like or AI generated art that kind of flows and becomes new things. You know, I'm sitting there watching a scene and like I'm watching what I can only describe as like some kind of weird lizard creature, and then it like melts into the environment and becomes something else. Very trippy shit. And the whole time I'm experiencing that, I don't remember much of it. I'm literally like, I'm telling you just fragments because when it was happening, I'm like, I got to remember this. And I'm like, who's the one remembering? What the hell are you supposed to be remembering? Who's this person talking? There's nobody here. Like, it was just like a whole bunch of brain farts. And it was really fucking wild because I've never had that. Usually I go past that. Usually when I do this, I go into like a deep state of just, you know, transcendent, just conscious, aware of itself. This was, I was seeing the multiverse first. And I'm sitting there trying to tell myself to remember. Don't forget this. Don't forget this. This is the most incredible vision you've had in a long time. Don't forget it. And as soon as I would say that, I'd forget what I was trying to remember. And I don't know what it was. I couldn't remember much. And I just remember those a couple little scenes that I'm telling you. And I remember my wife coming in, like bothering me, like, you know, to make sure I was okay. She's like, you know, honey, do you want the blah, blah, blah? I'm like, total fucking brain lock. And I remember like being, I guess you could say, not just bilocated, but I don't know, multi-located. Like I wasn't just here. I was in the multiverse and on my bed hearing the television. it was really something else. And was it weed or was it, I think what happened is the sativa being more of a head high, didn't put me out. It allowed my brain to basically have an out of body experience. It allowed me to have, which is probably just my brain resonating with something else elsewhere. That's probably what it is. I have no explanation for it. But it was really wild. And not gonna lie, I've been trying to do it again, but I keep doing it wrong. I keep doing it right before bed and I just fall asleep. So I got to do it like in the middle of the day when I'm not going to fall asleep. Subscriber formerly knows me too. That sounds like you were just edging ego death. If you were sitting there going, you remember your name, but you were afraid to go much further. That's for a lot of people. For me, there was no fear. Well, actually, no, I'm going to correct that. The first time I had a non-dual experience, there was fear of that ego death moment, and I turned back. Not going to lie, I turned back. That's that Bush story. I got right to the edge where like I was about to just go off into the universe, and I was like, but I want to see how my life goes. Like I felt like I was about to just let it all go. Not death, like I was gonna have a heart attack death, but like leave my life behind death. And I was like, I don't know if I want to see how my life goes. I want to see how my wife goes. I want to see what happens next. And I came back and slammed back into myself. But other times I haven't had that. There was no fear. I just was like, I know this is fine. So it sounds like you were probably like right on the edge of it. You would have come back. Don't worry about me. Me too. There is no permanence to that leaving. That leaving is as temporary or as permanent as you want it to be. And when I say want, I mean the will of the divine. So basically, that was the divine telling itself. Think of it like a lucid dream, okay? And Doc, I might have to take your advice and try the other way around. It might work better with Indica, but Indica makes me sleepy. It like puts me right to sleep. They both do, though, if I'm not careful. Think of it like a lucid dream, me too. When you're having a lucid dream, you're usually on the verge of waking up the rest of the way. And non-dual awakening is basically realizing, like a lucid dream, that this is like a dream and you're lucid now. You know you're dreaming. The definition of a lucid dream is to know you're dreaming. It's not that you have magic powers over the dream. It is just a realization that you're dreaming. And that could be scary as fuck the first time. This is why I often frame these things in a little bit of a cosmicism kind of way. I do this a little bit from a Lovecraft perspective, a little bit. I do definitely put it in it's scary for people a lot. It's definitely scary to know you're the universe. When you think of the universe just as we can see it, that's enormous. When you start putting infinite universe and multiverse to it, and you realize you're that, the amount of, oh fuck, it's scary. Like even to me who knows this, there are moments when I go, I don't like that. And I realize that's one of the reasons why the divine incarnates, is because to be everything all at once, or to think of eternity forever, it's sort of like the whole vampire irony. Like vampires, they live forever, sort of, but they kind of after a while don't want to, because eternal life kind of sucks after a while. Like the first 100, 200, 300 years is probably pretty good. But then after a while, it's like, you know, it's the same thing, monotonous every day for the rest of nobody wants permanence, right? People think they do. People think like, oh, I want to be this forever. Nobody really wants to be this forever. Eventually everybody wants to die. Just trust me. And the other irony of the vampire thing as a tangent is, you know, when you think of vampires living forever, yeah, let's imagine a vampire living like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years. Sounds like a lot, except in the grand scheme, that's a blink of the eye. It doesn't even count. So, I forget what I was going with. It's kind of getting time for me to shut this down, but. NA says he saw Liz. Dude, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like people are like, oh, you don't have psychedelic trips from weed. I'm like, oh, contraire. I think if you do enough, you can. I think you can stone yourself stupid, man. Like for real. I really do think you can have that. Yeah. Yeah, me too. I understand that now you understand it. He says, I believe that, but at the moment I couldn't. I totally get that, because You know, if you do that, if you reach that edge a few times, eventually you will dive off the edge happily if you haven't already. Ninurta says, DH, you're lucky it's legal now in New York. Yeah, I agree. When we say that it's legal, it's not like widespread legal, but you can actually go to the reservations and get it now. So you don't, and there's plenty of reservations around here. So you don't actually have to have like a drug dealer or anything. You can literally just go, and it's sold like good stuff from, I guess dispensaries is where they get it. And you can get the good vape stuff that's, you know, I don't know if it's certified or not, but it's pretty safe. You can get good strains. And I'm not like a fucking professional pothead or anything. Trust me, it's not what I'm about. But now that it's like a legal thing that I can screw with, you know, everything in moderation, be safe, you know, don't make it your life. But yeah, it's definitely a thing here now. If they could just hurry up and get psychedelics, I think psychedelics should be not just legal. I think that they should be like, you should be able to set up fucking religious institutions that let you play with them. Because if they're anything like meditation, you know. I mean, in a way, NA says reincarnation is eternal life. Why would anyone want to give that up? And you can't, okay? That's actually this is actually why a lot of the Enlightenment ontologies are either lying to you, like that's their form of spiritual slavery, because they're getting the peasant class to just repetitively do this shit as worshipers, and that's how they subsist. That's one reason. Some of them, it's actually a red herring or a snipe hunt, so to speak. They're having people do a wild goose chase because the point is to give up, and in giving up, you're enlightened. So there's actually a very wise, I think he was a Zen master, who said something to the effect of, you are not enlightened unless the prospect of reincarnating in your exact life right now 5,000 more times, if that doesn't sound like a delight to you, you are not enlightened. If you are trying to get out of this life or any life, if you're trying to stop reincarnating, you're not enlightened. The moment you're enlightened is when you realize the glory of being reincarnated endlessly, if you wish, because it never stops. The divine never stops incarnating. It's just, so liberation and nirvana is the realization of that you are the whole, you're the wheel, you're the spoke, you're the whole thing, and you're the observer, not the observed, so to speak. Although the observed is you too, but so I agree. But the thing is that, you know, a lot of these New Age love and light, or especially Western, you know, people who approach these Eastern philosophies and stuff, their whole goal is to escape reality. And that's a fool's errand, man. That's a fool's errand. You know, I think that the issue around reincarnation is that the way it's taught is mostly just a superstitious system of like morality. It has nothing to do with what it really is. You reincarnate every moment. If you really understood what you're doing right now, you'd realize that every moment is a new incarnation. You're incarnating right now, and you reincarnate endlessly. That never stops. Incarnation is just an egoistic position. And when you let go of that egoistic position, you don't stop incarnating, but you don't feel trapped in it. It becomes a ride, and you're just enjoying it. That doesn't mean you don't have bad days, by the way. It just means that you realize that it's just a ride. Well, Devin, you're in luck, because that's sort of what Plato prescribed. He said that every soul reincarnates after a period of 1,000 years in the afterlife. So you die, you spend 1,000 years in the underworld, and then you reincarnate. So we'll give you 1,000 years. In fact, I'm going to give you a movie suggestion. If you haven't seen it, watch the movie What Dreams May Come. That movie sounds like this fanciful, like, you know, like just a fantasy about death. It's actually rooted in Platonistic, Neoplatonistic, and Gnostic philosophy. It's kind of like The Matrix, but for spiritual people. What Dreams May Come is an incredibly good movie for that reason. It's really It's fanciful, yes, but on a scale of 1 to 10, from 1 being complete bullshit to 10 being how it really is, I'm gonna say it's like a 5 or a 6. Like that's pretty close. You know, yeah, it's fanciful. Yeah, it's Hollywood. Yeah, it's got special effects and shit that probably wouldn't happen like that. But the general gist of the movie, the general philosophy of it, pretty close. Not far. Not far off. Because there are different levels of realization. You can still be egoistic and disembodied. People don't realize that. When you're dreaming, and you can still be egoistic in a dream. Ego is not limited to just being incarnated in a body. Egoism can follow you even into the deepest fucking recesses of psychedelic trips to completely go into I am the divine itself. That's a deep trip. And you can die and not do that. You can die and not return to that realization. Okay. That is sort of what the reincarnation trap, as Alpha was saying it is. The reincarnation trap is this idea that you don't go back to a source or something, like you don't realize you are source or whatever. And you just reincarnate immediately because you're scared. That, I guess, you know, I don't know. It's not my thing. For me, I don't care if it happens that way. And I guess that's what makes me enlightened. I literally don't care if I die and get reincarnated as somebody's asshole or something. That doesn't faze me. Like I have come to terms with the reality that death is not the beginning or the end of anything. It is just another step in an infinite cycle of the universe having a sadomasochistic orgy with itself. And are there realities I would like to see? Fuck yeah. You know what I'd like to see next? I'd like to reincarnate in a Star Wars universe where I'm a fucking Jedi and all that cool shit. That's the next one I want, you know. Failing that, I want it to be like Avatar, or, you know, like there's a million fucking ones I want to see next. And you know what's really fucking funny? You know what's really, really funny? Every one of you guys going like, I want to live in this beautiful, you know, fantasy universe. If you reincarnated into that fantasy universe, this mundane, boring ass universe would be just as weird to you, and you might want to reincarnate here. You know, like imagine the movie Avatar. There's aliens living in Avatar, right? If you're thinking about the Avatar, there's some blue aliens that would like to see Earth, right? And would like to see what it's like to be a human. As boring as we seem to those Avatar, like everyone who watched Avatar and had Pandora blues like I had, they're like, oh, I would just love to be a fucking Na'vi, and I'd love to swing through the trees and ride the dragons and all that cool shit. And the irony is there's probably Na'vi that would love to fly through space and go to Earth and even see the dystopia of Earth. That's the thing, right? The grass is always greener on the other side. There is no timeline of the universe that's superior to the universe. This is why they say God loves you. Okay, this is why the Christian perspective, God loves you, because the divine loves itself. Everything the divine does, it loves itself always. Even the worst moment, you fucking get eaten by a shark. That's the divine going, holy shit, this was cool. Because the divine's being the shark and the one getting eaten at the same time. It's having a fucking ball. So, yeah, in that moment of getting eaten by the shark, you're going to hurt, you're going to be pissed, you're going to be scared, you're going to cry. No doubt. Not saying I'm going to sit there going, this is pretty cool. I'm saying the divine is enjoying every minute of it. And when that final bite, chop, you're gone, you're probably going to feel free. You're going to be like, I want to be the shark next. That fucker ate me. I want to be the shark now. So, yeah. Yeah, NA, there's nothing, like, I have a saying that's part of my tradition. This manifestationism, integrated with certain Luciferian principles. The statement is, it's sort of two statements in one. One is a statement, one's a challenge. It's an axiom and a challenge. It is, if all is divine, then nothing is forbidden. And the if and the then are in parentheses. So it's really all is divine, nothing is forbidden. And if all is divine, then nothing is forbidden. That means that if all is divine, there's nothing sinful, there's nothing evil, there's nothing wrong. That doesn't mean that from an incarnated position that you don't take positions of morality. You still can. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It's that everything is possible and everything is divine. That means even the worst thing is divine. So the idea of immediately reincarnating, there's nothing wrong with that either. So even if I sound judgy about it, that's just my ego judging it. From the divine perspective, it's all good. It's literally all good, man. You know, like the total stoner, it's all good, man. It is all good. It does not matter. The divine is having a ball no matter what it's doing. So just chill and enjoy it. Yeah, my issue with the law of one is that the law of one, it violates certain principles of the realization of non-duality. That is to say, it has a hierarchical approach where there are qualitatively superior states and qualitatively inferior. And when I say inferior, superior, I literally mean like that's bad, that's good, and you should. It tells you what you should do. That is always a red flag to me in a spiritual sense. The most enlightened spiritual ontologies don't do that. They don't tell you, you know, like this is a better way to live. That this is a more spiritually appropriate thing. They don't judge the divine's actions. And so that, I'm not saying the law of one is not based on something valid. I'm saying that that's my critique of it. I don't subscribe to it for those reasons. There's too much of a qualitative good and evil, you know, ascension, descension, hierarchical, you know, egoistic vibe to it. It really kind of encourages you to have egoism going on. It will tell you that in a way that says it's better to not have ego, right? Because it says like, what is it? You get stuck in what, fifth? I think you're putting some of the levels there. I'm not as familiar with it as I should be. But I think, what is it? The fifth or sixth or fourth or one, you get stuck. Like you don't go all the way up to the seventh or whatever the last level is. And you can raise up, but you get stuck and that's like evil. And it's like, this implies a certain level of like, you know, cosmic, justice, you know, like a justice system to the universe. I am kind of, does that mean it wasn't really channeled and it was, no, I'm not saying it's an invalid thing. I'm just saying it's got red flags for me. That's why I don't practice it. Does some of it sound very resonant? Yes. But that could also be that the person studied those things and just input them. I don't know, you know, so, I have critiques of it. I don't dislike it. I have critiques of it. Just like I have critiques of everything. I have critiques of Zen, at least how it's practiced in the West in particular. I have critiques of a lot of things. Doesn't mean I don't like them. You know, it's just, there's a reason why I have my own philosophy and I don't use other people's. And no, I don't consider non-duality a philosophy, by the way. Advaita is a philosophy. I don't call myself an invited. If you notice, I call myself a non-dualist. This simply means I have a perspective. It's not a trained perspective. It's not a taught perspective. It's not a learned perspective. It is literally just something that I see, like I know it. And then I study a lot of things to find out language to try to help people understand that. So, like, you know, I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense with that. Anyway, I think I should go because what time is it? It's getting late. It's been, oh yeah, it's late. He wants to go back to Nibiru. Dude, that always cracks me up. You know, when people take pictures of the sun and it's obviously a lens flare and they're like, oh my God, it's Nibiru. See that blue orb? And it's like, that's not Nibiru. It is literally a reflection on the inner part of your lens. It is not Nibiru. Oh, that's of course what people would say. I'm like, people have been seeing that blue orb for about, 40 years now, and it ain't hit us yet. You know, these people crack me up. Yes, Devin, exactly. Because you sound more familiar with it than me. And like I said, I'm not saying disregard it. I really want to make that clear. Law of One has some good nuggets in there. The issue is that, like you just said, there's definitely some dualistic traps, and those traps may be on purpose. You have to understand, the divine incarnates in this thing to have fun. And part of that fun is to not stop. It's to make it go on for a long time. Part of the fun is to not know you're dreaming. Let's be honest. When you're playing a video game on God mode, is it fun anymore? To a point, right? We've all played, at least I have. I've gotten enjoyment out of video games on God mode. There's no question. Some of them I just play for the story and I don't care. I just don't care if I die or not. You know, like if I can't die, I'm just enjoying the story and I want to blow stuff up. But for the most part, we enjoy games more if there's a chance we could lose, right? Well, the game of life would be really boring if you spent every minute of it disregarding any of the threats, consequences, or whatever that it has. Because you know you're God and it doesn't matter what happens, you're just going to die and poof into the next life. If you have that mentality, you don't worry about anything. You don't go and pay your bills. You don't go to work. You don't have kids. You just, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people wouldn't care about life anymore. They would be apathetic about it. Now that's a trap too, right? That's also a trap. You wouldn't necessarily do that, but a lot of people would. They wouldn't take life seriously enough to enjoy it. So the ignorance of mortality is actually what makes mortality pleasurable. It's what makes mortality worth it. To be able, so in a way, having this lucidness like I'm describing, in a temporary way, realizing you're the divine and then reincarnating as this idiot that's D.H. Thorne with a fat gut and all this other shit, that's fun. That's the point. To transcend and stay there is not the point. If it was, the divine would be doing it right now forever. If the point of life was to not live, the divine wouldn't live. This is my problem with a lot of these enlightenment ontologies that preach about how you need to reach nirvana and never reincarnate again. Dude, no offense, but fuck those people. That's ridiculous. That makes it like the divine is at the mercy of something. No. The divine is here for fun, man. Enjoy it. Don't run from it. Anybody who's sitting there going, oh, the point of this life is to transcend and to learn to be God. Now, the point of this life is the point of this life. Does that make sense? The point of this life is to live it. That's it. It's not to achieve some goal. That's always the ego talking. Ego is the one that wants a goal because that's how the ego runs. That's how the ego validates itself. All right. Alpha, what is that? Oh my God, incredible. Thank you, Alpha. I appreciate the $4.99 so much. Thank you, Alpha. It was good meeting you too, by the way. You were fun to have around. You know, we went to the club again and we left at 2 a.m. again because everybody got sleepy but me. What is with people? I don't understand it, Alpha. Nobody wants to spend all night at the club. I don't know. That's why I need a club in the neighborhood. I would just go and hang out. I wouldn't even deal with the timing. I would just leave. So. That's right, Inertia. You got to be wise and childlike. Bingo. Bingo. I look forward to being more childish as I get older. That's going to be the fun part. I already am. I play with stuffed animals with my wife all the time. Dude, I went from, I was never like a gangbanger or anything, but I went from being like way more of like a edgy, dark guy. And just like, you know, I've always had a cutesiness. You can ask my wife. I was always singing little cutesy songs. I'm getting worse as I get older. I'm getting more and more like, you know, like that meme of Skeletor with the cute little unicorn going, when you're evil, but you like cute things. That's becoming me more all the time. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for your questions and comments. Thank you for keeping me on topics and stuff. I will be here next week. There may be a little bit of interruption of live streams around the Thanksgiving time until after Christmas because of, I'm sure you did, Inerta, with all the talk of the gang stuff from last time. Around the holidays, I am going to be doing less streaming. We'll have to see because I'm going to be working many evenings selling Christmas trees to Christians. Oh, the irony, for a little bit extra money. So I'll be working like, 3 to 5 days a week doing that. Probably 4, and it'll probably be like Sunday through Thursday. So or Sunday through Wednesday or something. So there's a decent chance that I won't be here doing streams as much. I'll try to still do stuff because I don't want to not do something for like a month or two. That would kill my channel. But there may be a little interruption here and there. But in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be trying to have some guests on. So I've been trying to get a bunch of people, but a lot of people, I guess, are busy for the next couple of weeks. They're all very eager to do it. They're like, I would love to, but I can't do it until like December or something. It's like, fuck. So there's going to be some guests on soon. I'm trying to get Hunter Salazar. He's agreed to do it. Just no question of when. No, we can't decide. Ellie Alchemist wants to come on again. He's a definite. I got D. He wants to come back on. He's almost a definite. I got Eldoria. She's supposed to be coming on soon too. There's also some other people that I'm not going to announce yet, but I want to get them on. I'm going to be doing a review of someone's book. I keep meaning to do it, and I haven't done it. So I keep meaning to do a review of somebody's book, and I might have them on after I do that. So we'll see. You know, they'd probably be real ecstatic to do it. So we'll see. So, all right, guys, I guess that's it. Thank you so much. Oh, and to nurture the Discord's really easy. In the description of this video, there is a link to a Linktree link. In fact, let me grab that. And if you click this Linktree link, and I'm going to pin it just in case. If you click that link that I just popped up in the chat, you go to that. Somewhere, one of the listings is for my Discord community. You can click that, follow the instructions, and either tonight or tomorrow, someone will admit you the rest of the way. Just follow the instructions when you first join. It's going to say, tell us your age, and you agree, and tell you a bunch of rules, and just do your best to follow the directions. And, oh, you got it already. All right, good. So someone will get with you as soon as we can. I'm probably just going to go right to bed, so I'm probably not going to get to it tonight. But sometimes I do. So, yeah, and we're having a movie night soon. I think we're having it on Friday after Thanksgiving. We're going to be in the Discord, going to be watching Clerks. So that was my wife's request. She's hosting. She's going to be hosting a movie night on the 25th of November. So if you want to hang out with us, live stream, make sure you got a video camera set up or something so you could, FaceTime us all basically. Discord has a great video service. We'll stream Clerks there. We'll watch it as a group, and that'll be fun. So, yeah. For those people who don't have a family or don't want to spend it with theirs, you can join us on Friday the 25th, and we will watch a movie. All right? So, all right, guys. Again, oh, one other announcement. I'll announce it again next week, but on the 11th, Camilla and I are going to Iron Garden again for the movie night. She's going to be selling some mirrors there. So if you're in the area of Newark around the 11th and you don't, what's that? She's auctioning one. And I think another one's, I don't know what the deal is. There's like a couple getting donated. I don't know. But we're going to be there. She's auctioning one herself. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to be watching a movie. It's like a 50s horror movie. And I guess there's the club afterwards, right? Yeah, so there's the normal club stuff afterwards. So if you're in the Newark area again on the 11th, you want to meet us in person, see us all gothed out, come check us out. If you're in the area, that would be dope as fuck. And you might actually get a mirror at a very low price because it'll be auctioned at a lower price than we normally sell them at. So if you can beat the auction, you might get it cheaper than what it's sold for. So that'll be fun. So, all right, guys, I guess that's it. I'll be announcing it again next week. Until then, guys, boy, my voice is shot. Love you all. Hate the rest of you. And I'm really glad you came. Oh, make sure you fucking vote the right way on Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? Let's stop this bullshit. I don't want to get political here, but get your fucking ass out there. Don't let them fucking throw us off the cliff, guys, please. Just do your best. You know what to do. You know what I'm trying to say. All right, guys, until then, maybe next stream will be all about the results of that. We'll find out because that might be fun. All right, guys. I keep saying goodbye. I'm really bad at goodbyes. I do those. Goodbye. Fuck you. Bye.